I'd spent 60, 80 years on this earth learning to trust my instincts. And that Tuesday in June, every alarm bell in my body was ringing when my daughter-in-law's name flashed across my phone screen. If you're watching this, please subscribe and let me know where you're watching from. I promise, by the end of this story, you'll understand why a mother's intuition is sometimes all we have to protect the ones we love. Melanie, darling, Brittany's voice dripped with that saccharine sweetness I'd grown to recognize as a prelude to asking for something. Hunter's been working so hard lately. I'm planning a little getaway for us, just to help him relax. I clutched my teacup tighter, watching the steam rise in lazy spirals. My son Hunter had indeed been working himself to the bone at his law firm. 60-hour weeks had become his norm, leaving deep circles under his eyes that even my motherly reassurances couldn't erase. That sounds lovely, Brittany, I replied, keeping my voice deliberately neutral. I'm sure he could use a break. A pause lingered on the line, the kind that meant the real purpose of the call was yet to come. The thing is, she continued, I'm planning something special. 5-star treatment. You know, and I want to have backup payment methods just in case of emergencies while we're traveling. I was hoping you'd share your credit card information for emergencies only. Of course. The request hung in the air between us, and I found myself gripping the phone tighter. In my decades of living, I'd learned that when someone asks for access to your money for emergencies, the emergency often materializes with suspicious convenience. I have the emergency fund account information Hunter gave you last year, I said carefully. Wouldn't that be sufficient? Oh, Melanie, Brittany laughed, a tinkling sound like wind chimes in a storm. That account has such a low limit. What if something serious happened? This is for Hunter's well-being. After all, I closed my eyes, picturing my son's face, the way his eyes crinkled at the corners when he smiled, just like his father's had. Hunter had been my entire world since my husband Robert passed away 9 years ago. And if I was being honest, I'd been steadily losing him for the past 2 years, ever since Brittany had begun her subtle campaign to isolate him from me. Looking back, I should have seen the warning signs sooner. The way she'd begun to reschedule our Sunday dinners, the gentle suggestions that perhaps I was too tired to babysit my grandchildren, the small comments about my age, my forgetfulness, my outdated ways. Your mother seems tired, honey. Maybe we shouldn't burden her with dinner this week. Melanie's getting a bit forgetful, isn't she? Perhaps we should limit her access to the children. The children. My heart ached thinking about them. Lily, 8 years old with her grandfather's blue eyes and a mind sharp as a tack. Little Max, just 5, with dimples that could melt the Arctic. 2 beautiful souls I barely saw anymore because Auntie Brittany always had better plans for them. Plans that somehow never included Grandma. Let me think about it. Brittany, I said finally. I'll call you back this afternoon. We're booking tonight, Melanie, she pressed, a hint of irritation cracking through her sweet veneer. Hunter deserves this break. Don't you want your son to be happy? The manipulation was so transparent it almost made me laugh, as if my reluctance to hand over my financial information somehow indicated I didn't care about my son's happiness. Of course I do, I replied evenly. I'll call you back in an hour. After ending the call, I sat at my kitchen table, fingers drumming against the worn wood. The emergency account I'd set up for Hunter contained $50,000 money I'd been saving for years. For medical emergencies, for the grandchildren's college funds, for whatever unexpected storms life might throw at my family. The irony wouldn't be lost on me later. I picked up the phone again and dialed a number I knew by heart. Samantha, it's me. Do you have a minute to talk about Hunter and Brittany? My daughter Samantha, Hunter's younger sister by 4 years, had always been the practical one in the family. While Hunter had his father's easy charm and optimism, Samantha had inherited my skeptical nature and clear-eyed view of the world. Mom, what's going on? Samantha asked after I explained Brittany's request. Am I being paranoid? I asked. Am I turning into one of those interfering mothers-in-law we used to laugh about? Samantha's sigh carried through the phone. Mom, you know I've never been Brittany's biggest fan. There's something calculated about her. Always has been. Have you noticed how little we see the kids these days? I've noticed, I said quietly. Last month, when I asked to take Lily shopping for her birthday, Brittany said they had previous commitments that couldn't be changed. But later that day, I saw her Instagram posts from the local mall with Lily. Exactly, Samantha replied. And remember Christmas when Hunter and the kids were 2 hours late because Brittany suddenly needed to visit her parents first, even though we'd planned dinner for months. I remembered. I also remembered how Brittany had spent that entire Christmas dinner on her phone, occasionally showing Hunter something that made him frown or step away to make calls. By dessert, the joy had been sucked out of the room, and they left early. Brittany claiming a headache. What's your gut telling you about this credit card request? Samantha asked. That something's not right, I admitted. Hunter didn't mention any trip to me, and we had lunch just last week. Wouldn't he have said something about a vacation? Unless he doesn't know about it, Samantha suggested. Maybe it's supposed to be a surprise. Maybe, I conceded, though doubt nagged at me. But why ask for my credit card information? They have their own cards. Trust your instincts, Mom, Samantha said firmly. You've always had good judgment about people. If something feels off, it probably is, after hanging up. I made my decision. I called Brittany back and gave her the information for my emergency account, the one I'd already set up for Hunter. It had substantial funds, but not access to my entire savings. I made her promise to use it only in a genuine emergency, and she agreed with such effusive gratitude that I almost believed her. Almost. 3 months later, I would understand exactly how naive I'd been. The chocolate chip cookies were still warm in their container as I walked through the hospital corridors, anticipation building with each step. Hunter had been working so hard lately, and I thought a surprise visit with his favorite homemade cookies might brighten his afternoon. We'd always been close, my son and I, and despite Brittany's subtle efforts to distance us, we still maintained our special connection. I tried calling his office first, but his assistant mentioned he had taken a personal day unusual for my workaholic son. When I called his cell and got no answer, I decided to swing by his house. No one was home. A strange feeling had settled in my stomach, the kind of maternal sixth sense that can't be explained but shouldn't be ignored. On a hunch, I called his best friend Marcus, who mentioned Hunter had been complaining of chest pains earlier in the week. Did he see a doctor? I'd asked, alarm rising in my voice. He said he would, Marcus replied. But you know Hunter, always putting work first. That was all I needed to hear. I drove straight to Mercy General, the hospital closest to Hunter's office, and asked if my son had been admitted. Pope Hunter Pope, the receptionist, had clicked through her computer. Yes, he's in the ICU. Room 418. ICU. The 3 letters hit me like a physical blow. Intensive care unit. My son, my only son, was in intensive care, and no one had called me. Now, as I approached room 418, I rehearsed my cheerful greeting. I'd scold him gently for not taking care of himself, share the cookies, remind him that even brilliant corporate lawyers weren't immune to human limitations. I'd make him laugh, ease his worry. But when I pushed open the door to room 418, laughter was the furthest thing from my mind. Hunter lay unconscious, his strong frame suddenly looking vulnerable against the stark white hospital sheets. A ventilator breathed for him. Monitors beeped steadily, tracking each heartbeat. IV lines snaked from his arms. But what struck me hardest was the absolute solitude of the scene. My son was fighting for his life, and he was completely alone. No wife clutching his hand, no concerned Brittany pacing the room or making calls to family. Just Hunter, unconscious and unattended except for the mechanical vigilance of hospital equipment. The cookie container slipped from my suddenly numb fingers, landing with a soft thud on the linoleum floor. "Ma'am?" A nurse appeared beside me, her face concerned. "Are you family?" "I'm his mother," I managed, my voice sounding distant even to my own ears. "What happened to my son?" The nurse, her name tag read Angela, gently guided me to a chair beside Hunter's bed. Mr. Pope suffered a massive myocardial infarction, a heart attack, yesterday afternoon at his office. He was brought in by ambulance around 2 p.m. Yesterday, I repeated, shock giving way to disbelief. He's been here since yesterday afternoon, and no one called me. Angela checked the chart in her hands. His emergency contact is listed as his wife, Brittany Pope. Our records show she was contacted immediately after his admission. The room seemed to tilt around me. And where is she? The nurse's expression told me everything before she spoke. We've been trying to reach Mrs. Pope since Mr. Pope was admitted. She hasn't returned our calls. I reached for Hunter's hand, careful not to disturb the IV. His skin was warm, which Angela assured me was a good sign. His color was returning. She said, the doctors were cautiously optimistic. All I could think was, where is Brittany? Where is my son's wife while he fights for his life? Has anyone else been notified? His sister, his office, I asked. Mrs. Pope is the only emergency contact listed, Angela replied. Hospital policy restricts us from contacting others without authorization. I nodded, understanding the privacy rules even as they infuriated me. I'd like to speak with his doctor, please. While Angela went to page the cardiologist, I pulled out my phone. 3 missed calls from Samantha. Nothing from Brittany. On instinct, I opened Instagram, where my daughter-in-law was notably active. There it was, posted 4 hours ago, Brittany, radiant in a white bikini, sunglasses perched on her perfect nose, champagne flute in hand, against a backdrop of impossibly blue water and white sand. The caption read, Living my best life, #Maldives escape, our luxury getaway. I scrolled through her recent posts. More paradise images, exotic meals, sunset cocktails, and in several photos, a man I didn't recognize, athletic, tanned, significantly younger than Hunter, appeared beside her, his arm draped possessively around her waist in one particularly intimate sunset shot. The post was tagged Magic Moments with @Kevin Bishop Fitness, now our best trainer ever. As I stared at the evidence of my daughter-in-law's betrayal, another notification popped up on my screen. A charge alert from my emergency account, the one I'd given Brittany access to, just in case. $12,000 charged to the 5 Seasons Resort, Maldives. My hands weren't shaking as I called Samantha. They should have been, with the rage and betrayal coursing through me. But instead, I felt an unnatural calm, the kind that comes when shock gives way to absolute clarity. Sam, it's me, I said when she answered. Hunter's in the ICU at Mercy General. Heart attack. I need you to come now. Oh my God, she gasped. I'm on my way. Have you called Brittany? Brittany, I said, my voice perfectly level, is currently enjoying the Maldives with another man, using my emergency fund to pay for it. The silence on the other end stretched for 3 long seconds. I'll be there in 20 minutes, Samantha finally said. Don't do anything until I get there. But there was one thing I couldn't wait to do. One call I needed to make immediately. I scrolled through my contacts until I found a name I hadn't needed in years. Jessica Harper. Jessica had been my friend since college. After a messy divorce 15 years ago, she'd reinvented herself as a private investigator, specializing in cases just like this one. We'd drifted apart over the years, but I knew she'd take my call. Jessica, it's Melanie Pope. I need your help. I explained the situation as concisely as I could. My son in the ICU, my daughter-in-law in the Maldives with another man, my money funding their tropical betrayal. I need everything you can find on Brittany's activities over the past year, I said. And I need information on this Kevin Bishop character. Fast. I'm on it, Jessica replied without hesitation. And Melanie, I'm sorry. No one deserves this kind of betrayal. As I ended the call, Dr. Martinez entered the room. He was younger than I expected, but his manner was reassuringly confident as he explained Hunter's condition. Your son experienced a significant cardiac event, Mrs. Pope, a complete blockage of the left anterior descending artery, what we sometimes call the widowmaker. The term sent ice through my veins. Fortunately, his colleagues acted quickly. CPR was administered immediately, and the ambulance response was exceptional. We performed an emergency angioplasty and placed a stent to open the blocked artery. The next 24 to 48 hours are critical, but I'm cautiously optimistic. When will he wake up? I asked. We've kept him sedated to allow his body to heal. We'll begin reducing the sedation tomorrow morning. With luck, he should regain consciousness within the next day or so. I nodded, absorbing the information. And his long-term prognosis, with proper medication, dietary changes, stress reduction, and cardiac rehabilitation. Many patients his age make a full recovery. But, Dr. Martinez added, his expression serious. This was a significant event. Mrs. Pope, your son will need to make substantial lifestyle changes. He will, I promised. I'll make sure of it. After the doctor left, I settled into the chair beside Hunter's bed, my hand covering his. The steady beep of the heart monitor became a strange comfort, each sound confirming my son was still fighting, still here. I'm here now, I whispered to him. And I'm not going anywhere. I studied his face, so like his father's, the strong jaw, the slight crease between his brows that appeared even in sleep. Hunter had always carried the weight of responsibility, even as a child, the one who looked after his sister, who excelled in school, who built a successful law career through sheer determination and brilliant strategic thinking. Now, seeing him vulnerable, I felt a fierce protective instinct I hadn't experienced since he was small. Someone had hurt my child. Someone had abandoned him when he needed them most. And that someone was going to regret it. By the time Samantha arrived at the hospital, I had moved past shock into a cold, focused fury. She took one look at Hunter's unconscious form and then at my face, and I saw her own expression harden. "What do we know?" she asked, taking the chair opposite mine, across Hunter's bed. I filled her in on everything Hunter's condition. Brittany's absence, the Instagram evidence, the charges to my emergency account. "That conniving, gold-digging," Samantha began, her voice rising. "Not here," I interrupted, nodding toward Hunter, even unconscious. I didn't want negative energy surrounding him. "Let's step outside." In the hallway, Samantha's composure broke. "I never trusted her, Mom. From day one, something was off." The way she latched on to Hunter after learning about his position at the firm, how she pushed for that extravagant wedding after only 6 months of dating, the prenup she fought against. "I know," I sighed. "But Hunter was so in love, and after losing your father, seeing him happy again, I didn't want to be the interfering mother-in-law. So what's our next move?" Samantha asked, practical as always. "Have you called Brittany?" "Not yet. I've called Jessica Harper. You remember her? She's a PI now. She's looking into Brittany and this Kevin person." Samantha nodded approvingly. "Good. What about the money?" My phone chimed with another alert. Another charge from the Maldives, this time for $3,500 at a spa. "That's it," I said, my decision crystallizing in that moment. "I'm freezing every account she has access to." Samantha's eyes widened. "Can you do that? Hunter made me a co-signer on all his major accounts after your father died just in case something happened to him. Given that something has happened, and his wife is halfway around the world spending his money with another man instead of being at his bedside. Yes, I believe I can." I found a quiet corner of the waiting room and opened my banking app. Technology might not have been my strong suit, but I'd learned to navigate financial websites out of necessity after Robert died. Now, I was grateful for that skill as I systematically worked through each account. Joint checking account frozen. Joint savings account frozen. Hunter's personal account with Brittany as authorized user frozen. My emergency fund that I'd given Brittany access to closed entirely. For good measure, I called the credit card companies and reported the cards as compromised. Within 20 minutes, Brittany Pope was effectively cut off from every cent of the Pope family money. As I worked, Jessica sent the first results of her investigation. Kevin Bishop, 35, was a personal trainer at Fit Life Gym, where Brittany had started taking private sessions 8 months ago. He advertised himself as a lifestyle transformation coach and physical wellness expert to affluent clients, particularly women. His Instagram, full of shirtless workout videos and philosophical quotes about seizing your true potential, had over 50,000 followers. And scattered throughout his feed were photos with various attractive women at luxury locations, each one tagged with gushing testimonials about his life-changing coaching. Jessica promised more detailed information soon, including financial records and background checks. I returned to Hunter's room to find Samantha talking softly to her brother, telling him about her daughter's recent soccer victory, as if he could hear every word. Perhaps he could. "Accounts are frozen," I told her quietly. "Every last one," Samantha nodded grimly. "Good. What about the kids? Do we know where Lily and Max are?" My heart clenched. In all the chaos, I hadn't even thought about my grandchildren. "Brittany's mother might have them," I suggested. "Or they could be with that nanny she hired Carly Carey." "Casey," Samantha corrected. "I have her number. Hunter gave it to me for emergencies." She stepped out to make the call, returning a few minutes later looking relieved. "The kids are with Brittany's sister in Connecticut for the week, some kind of pre-planned cousin camp. They're safe and having fun." I exhaled, grateful for that small mercy. At least the children were being cared for and shielded from this crisis. The phone in my hand began to ring exactly 47 minutes after I'd frozen the accounts. I knew because I'd been watching the clock, counting down the minutes until Brittany's world came crashing down around her designer sandals. Her name flashed on the screen. I showed it to Samantha, who raised an eyebrow. "Put it on speaker," she mouthed. I answered, keeping my voice perfectly calm. "Hello, Brittany." "Melanie." Her voice was strained, panic creeping around the edges of her usual composure. "There seems to be some problem with the cards. Everything's being declined." "Oh dear," I said, maintaining my tranquil tone. "How inconvenient for you. Where did you say you were again?" There was a pause, a long one. I'm at a spa retreat for my anxiety. You know how worried I get about Hunter's work stress." Samantha rolled her eyes dramatically. "Spa retreat," I repeated. "Right. That's what you're calling the Five Seasons Resort in the Maldives, where my private investigator friend has confirmed you checked in 3 days ago with a male companion. A male companion who definitely isn't my son, considering Hunter has been working 12-hour days at the law firm all week. Until yesterday, that is, when he collapsed from a massive heart attack and was rushed to the ICU, where he currently lies unconscious. The silence on the other end was deafening. "Which spa?" I continued sweetly. "I might recommend it to the ladies at my book club." Another pause, longer this time. It's very exclusive. You probably wouldn't have heard of it." "Try me," I said, watching a nurse check Hunter's IV. "I'm more worldly than you give me credit for." The silence stretched so long I wondered if the call had dropped. Then "Melanie, what's this really about? Why are the accounts frozen?" "Well, darling," Satsy said, using her favorite condescending endearment right back at her. "When I arrived at the hospital and found my son unconscious and alone, with no idea where his loving wife might be, I thought it best to secure his financial assets. You understand medical bills can be so expensive." "You had no right," she hissed, the facade of sweetness evaporating entirely. "Actually, I had every right. Funny thing about joint accounts. Brittany, when my name is on them as an emergency contact and co-signer, I can do whatever I deem necessary to protect my son's interests. And spending his money on luxury vacations with your fitness trainer while he's fighting for his life doesn't seem to be in his best interests. Does it?" I could hear her breathing, could practically see her calculating her next move. Brittany was many things manipulative. Cold, calculating, but she wasn't stupid. She knew she'd been caught. I was planning to come back immediately when I heard— "When you heard what exactly?" I interrupted. "Because as far as I can tell, the hospital has been trying to reach you for 18 hours. Your phone seems to work fine for Instagram posts. Though, lovely sunset shots. By the way, the Maldives look beautiful this time of year." The sharp intake of breath told me she'd realized I knew exactly where she was, and with whom. "Melanie, you don't understand the situation." "Oh, but I do," I said, pulling up the screenshots Jessica had sent me. "I understand that you've been planning this little getaway for weeks. I understand that you've already spent $15 to $500 of my emergency fund on this trip. And I understand that Kevin Bishop is quite the handsome companion for such an exclusive spa retreat." The phone went dead, I smiled grimly as I tucked my phone away and reached for Hunter's hand. His skin was warm, which Dr. Martinez had assured me was a good sign. His wedding ring caught the fluorescent light, a simple gold band he'd worn faithfully for 10 years. 10 years of marriage to a woman who couldn't even be bothered to stay in the same hemisphere when he needed her most. My phone buzzed with a text message, then another, then another. I ignored them all and settled in for what I suspected would be a very long night. Hunter needed his mother now, and unlike his wife, I wasn't going anywhere. By morning, I had 17 missed calls, 23 text messages, and one very interesting email from Jessica. Brittany had spent the night frantically trying to reach me while simultaneously attempting to access funds from accounts I'd locked down tighter than Fort Knox. But the email from Jessica was the real treasure-detailed surveillance photos that painted a picture worth far more than 1,000 words. Kevin Bishop, 35 personal trainer and aspiring social media influencer, had been Brittany's fitness instructor for 8 months, the same 8 months during which she'd suddenly developed a passion for private training sessions that lasted 3 hours and somehow required overnight stays at luxury hotels when Hunter was traveling for work. The receipts Jessica had obtained painted a fascinating timeline of my daughter-in-law's double life. Restaurant charges for intimate dinners, hotel bookings, jewelry purchases, all while Hunter worked 60-hour weeks to maintain the lifestyle Brittany had grown accustomed to. Mrs. Pope, a soft voice interrupted my reading. Dr. Martinez approached with cautious optimism in his eyes. Your son is showing signs of increased brain activity. We're reducing the sedation now. With luck, he should regain consciousness within the next few hours. I nearly dropped my phone. Can I stay with him? Of course, the doctor nodded. In fact, having a familiar presence often helps patients as they wake up. Talk to him. Let him hear your voice. For the next 3 hours, I sat beside Hunter, holding his hand and talking softly about everything and nothing. I told him about the rose bushes I'd planted in my garden, about Samantha's daughter winning her science fair, about the book club I'd joined. What I didn't tell him was that his wife was in paradise with another man. That would come later, when he was stronger. Samantha returned mid-morning with coffee and bagels, taking the next shift so I could shower and change in the hospital's family facilities. When I returned, Hunter's eyelids were fluttering. Mom, his voice was rough, his throat raw from the breathing tube they'd removed earlier that morning. I'm here, sweetheart, I said, taking his hand and squeezing gently. You're in the hospital. You had a heart attack, but you're going to be fine. Relief flooded his face at the sight of me, but then his eyes darted around the room, confusion setting in. Where's Brittany? The question hung in the air like a guillotine blade. Samantha and I exchanged glances. How do you tell your son, who just survived a massive heart attack, that his wife is living her best life in paradise with another man? How do you break that kind of news when his recovery depends on staying calm and stress-free? She's traveling, I said carefully. I've been here with you. Samantha, too. Hunter's brow furrowed. Traveling, but I don't remember. The last thing I remember was being at the office and this crushing pain in my chest. You collapsed at work on Thursday afternoon, I explained gently. It's now Saturday morning. You've been unconscious for almost 2 days. The confusion in his eyes was heartbreaking. But Brittany, she would have been here. She would have. He stopped, his gaze falling on the small vase of flowers I'd brought from my garden, the only flowers in the room. Mom, where is my wife? Before I could formulate an answer that wouldn't send his blood pressure skyrocketing, my phone rang. Brittany's name flashed on the screen, and Hunter's eyes locked onto it immediately. That's her, he said. Answer it, please. I looked at my son's hopeful face, then at the surveillance photos still open on my phone, showing his wife wrapped around another man on a beach that cost more per night than most people made in a month. In that moment, I made a decision that would change everything. Hello, Brittany, I answered, putting the phone on speaker before Hunter could object. Melanie, thank God. Her voice came through clear and desperate. I've been trying to reach you all night. How is Hunter? The hospital won't tell me anything because of privacy laws, and I'm trying to get a flight back, but everything's booked, and... Slow down, I said calmly. Hunter is awake and stable. He can hear you. Hunter! Her voice pitched higher, more dramatic. Baby, I'm so sorry I'm not there. I'm stuck in this horrible place with no connectivity, and I just found out about your accident. Accident, I interrupted. Who told you it was an accident? Another pause. I meant his heart attack. Of course. I misspoke because I'm so upset. Hunter was watching me now, something shifting in his expression. He'd always been sharp. My son a successful lawyer because he could read people in situations like books. And right now, he was reading the situation between his mother and his wife like the betrayal it was. Brittany, he said quietly, his voice carrying a strength that surprised me, given his condition. What horrible place are you stuck in? I thought you were at that yoga retreat in Phoenix. I watched my daughter-in-law's carefully constructed world begin to crumble through a hospital room phone speaker, and I realized that sometimes the truth doesn't need to be delivered gently. Sometimes it needs to arrive like a freight train, fast and impossible to ignore. The retreat moved. It's a traveling wellness program. But Hunter wasn't listening anymore. He was looking at me, and in his eyes was a question I wasn't sure I was ready to answer. Not yet. Mom, Hunter said after I'd hung up on Brittany's increasingly frantic explanations. What aren't you telling me? I'd been dreading this moment since I walked into his room, but looking at my son pale, vulnerable, but with that familiar steel in his eyes that reminded me he was indeed my child, I realized he deserved the truth, or at least part of it. Your wife is not at a yoga retreat, I said simply. She's in the Maldives, has been for 3 days, since before your heart attack. Hunter closed his eyes, and for a moment, I thought I'd made a terrible mistake. His heart monitor showed elevated readings, and I reached for the call button. Don't, he said quietly. I'm not surprised, Mom. Disappointed, but not surprised. That stopped me cold. What do you mean? I've known something was off for months. The secretive phone calls, the new clothes, the sudden interest in fitness. He let out a bitter laugh that turned into a cough. I hired a private investigator 6 weeks ago. My son had hired a private investigator 6 weeks ago before I'd ever thought to call Jessica. And, I asked, though I suspected I knew the answer, Kevin Bishop, personal trainer. They've been having an affair for 8 months. Hunter's voice was matter-of-fact, like he was discussing a legal case rather than his marriage. What I didn't know was that she'd taken a vacation while I was dying. The monitor beeped steadily as we sat in silence, processing this revelation. My son wasn't just a victim. He was a man who'd been gathering evidence, planning his next move. The lawyer in him had taken over where the husband had failed. Hunter, why didn't you say anything? Because I was hoping I was wrong, he said. And because I wanted to handle it cleanly. Legally. Divorce can get messy when there are children and assets involved. Assets, of course. Hunter had done very well for himself as a corporate lawyer. The house in Brookhaven, the vacation property in the mountains, the investments, the life insurance policy, the trust fund we'd established for the children. Brittany stood to gain quite a bit in a divorce, especially if she could prove emotional distress or claim Hunter had been an absent husband. But adultery was still adultery in Georgia, and evidence was evidence. So what was your plan? I asked. Hunter smiled then, the first real smile I'd seen since he'd woken up. Well, it was to gather enough evidence to protect my assets and ensure I kept custody of Lily and Max. But now, he gestured weakly at the hospital room, now I think my plan just got a lot more interesting. How so? Because my loving wife just abandoned me during a medical emergency to continue her affair in paradise, using my money. I assume, I nodded. She tried to spend $1,500 to $500 in the last 2 days alone. I froze the accounts. You froze? Hunter started laughing. Really laughing, despite the pain it clearly caused him. Mom, you magnificent woman. You froze her accounts while she was in the Maldives. She had access to my emergency funds. I removed that access. I couldn't help but smile at his reaction. So yes, she's stuck there. Well, she has whatever cash she brought and whatever Kevin can afford, but her credit cards, debit cards, and access to our accounts, completely frozen. Hunter was quiet for a long moment, and I could see him working through the implications, the legal mind never ceasing even in his weakened state. "Mom, I need you to do something for me. Anything. Call my lawyer, Rebecca Morgan. Tell her it's time to move forward with the divorce papers we discussed. And tell her the situation has evolved." Evolved how? Hunter's smile turned cold. And for a moment, I saw not my sweet boy, but the sharp attorney who'd built a successful practice by being 3 steps ahead of his opponents. Because abandonment during a medical emergency, adultery, and financial irresponsibility are going to make this divorce very one-sided in my favor, I squeezed his hand. "You've been planning this for a while." "I've been hoping I wouldn't need to," he corrected. "But yes, I've been prepared. What I wasn't prepared for was having a heart attack at 42, or for my wife to be so callous about it." My phone buzzed with another call from Brittany. We both looked at it. "Should I answer?" I asked. "Absolutely," Hunter said. "But put it on speaker. I want to hear exactly how she plans to explain this one. Melanie, please." Brittany's voice was strained, desperate in a way I'd never heard before. "You have to help me. I can't get home. The resort is demanding payment for the extended stay, and Kevin's card was declined, and I have no cash." "Slow down," I said, catching Hunter's eye. He nodded for me to continue. "You're saying you're trapped?" "Yes, the airline is demanding payment for ticket changes. The resort wants money for extra nights, and I can't access any of our accounts." She took a shuddering breath. "Melanie, I know we've had our differences, but Hunter needs me. I need to get home to my husband." Hunter mouthed, "Wow," and shook his head in disbelief. "Brittany, help me understand something," I said. "You've been gone for 3 days. Hunter had his heart attack on Thursday afternoon. It's now Saturday morning. When exactly were you planning to come home?" The original trip was supposed to end tomorrow. I was going to surprise Hunter by coming home a day early." I looked at Hunter, who was silently applauding what was apparently another lie. According to Jessica's information, Brittany had booked the trip for 10 days. Not a long weekend. "That's interesting," he said, "because according to the resort's booking confirmation, you're scheduled to stay until next Thursday. That's 5 more days." Brittany, silence. Long, telling silence. "How did you get that information?" she finally asked, her voice tight. "Darling, when you use joint credit cards to book romantic getaways with your personal trainer, that information becomes available to other card holders. Did you think I wouldn't notice $12,000 charged to the emergency account in 1 day? Kevin is not my Kevin Bishop, age 35, personal trainer at FitLife Gym, aspiring model with a fairly impressive Instagram following. Shall I read some of the captions from your photos together? They're quite romantic." Hunter was grinning now despite his condition. I'd never seen him look so proud of his old mother. "Melanie, you don't understand." "I understand perfectly," I interrupted. "I understand that you've been having an affair for 8 months. I understand that you abandoned your husband during a medical crisis to continue that affair. And I understand that you're now asking the woman whose money you stole to bail you out of the consequences of your own choices. I didn't steal anything. That money belongs to both of us." Actually, Hunter spoke for the first time, his voice carrying easily over the speaker. "That money belongs to me and my mother, and as of yesterday, you no longer have access to any of it." The sharp intake of breath from the phone was audible, even over the hospital's ambient noise. "Hunter, baby, you're awake. I've been so worried." "Worried enough to cut your vacation short?" he asked dryly. I tried to leave immediately when I heard, "But the flights, are you booking flights now? Brittany, right now? While we're talking?" Another pause. The internet here is very slow." "That's funny," I interjected, "because you posted an Instagram story 20 minutes ago. The internet seemed fast enough for that." Hunter closed his eyes and shook his head. "Brittany, stop. Just stop lying. We know about Kevin. We know about the affair. We know you've been using my money to fund your relationship with him. And we know you chose to stay in paradise instead of rushing home when your husband nearly died. Hunter, please, let me explain." "Explain to my lawyer," he said calmly, "because this conversation is being recorded. and everything you've said is going to be very helpful in our divorce proceedings. Divorce. Her voice pitched higher. Hunter, you can't be serious. You're not thinking clearly because of the medications. I'm thinking more clearly than I have in months, he said. And what I'm thinking is that my wife just admitted to stealing my money, abandoning me during a medical emergency, and lying about all of it. I didn't abandon you. I didn't know. You didn't know because you didn't care to know, Hunter said. You were too busy posting photos with your boyfriend to answer calls from the hospital. The line went quiet except for what sounded like crying, but I'd heard Brittany's manipulation tactics before, and I suspected Hunter had, too. Here's what's going to happen, Hunter continued. You're going to find your own way home. When you get here, you're going to find that the locks have been changed and your belongings packed. You're going to receive divorce papers within the week. Hunter, please. And Brittany, if you come anywhere near my children before this is settled legally, I'll have you arrested for abandonment and harassment. He motioned for me to end the call. And I did, cutting off what was building into a full-scale hysterical pleading. Hunter lay back against his pillows, looking more relaxed than he had since waking up. Feel better? I asked. I feel free, he said. For the first time in 2 years, I feel free. Rebecca Morgan arrived that afternoon with a briefcase full of papers and a smile that reminded me why Hunter spoke so highly of her legal skills. She was sharp, efficient, and had clearly been preparing for this moment much longer than I'd realized. How are you feeling, Hunter? She asked, setting up her laptop at the small table by the window. Like a man who just discovered his wife is even worse than he thought possible, Hunter replied. Did Mom fill you in on the latest developments? She did. And I have to say, Brittany has made our job considerably easier. Rebecca pulled out a thick folder. Abandonment during medical emergency, adultery with evidence, financial irresponsibility, endangering marital assets. This is going to be the fastest uncontested divorce I've ever handled. Uncontested? I asked. Oh, she'll contest it initially, Rebecca said. But when she sees the evidence we have, plus the new evidence from her current vacation, she'll settle quickly, especially when she realizes what fighting will cost her. Hunter shifted in his hospital bed. What do you mean? Well, let's start with the basics. You have a prenuptial agreement that becomes void in cases of adultery. You have documented evidence of her affair. You have proof she abandoned you during a medical emergency. And now you have recorded admissions of her using marital funds for personal vacations with her lover. Rebecca pulled out a set of photographs. Apparently, Jessica wasn't the only one who'd been busy gathering evidence. But here's the interesting part, Rebecca continued. According to the financial records your mother provided, Brittany has been systematically moving money from your joint accounts into personal accounts for the past 6 months. Small amounts. Nothing that would trigger automatic alerts, but totaling nearly $40,000. I felt my jaw drop. $40,000? She's been planning this for a while, Hunter said grimly. The affair, the money transfers, probably the exit strategy. What she didn't plan for was me having a heart attack and Mom freezing the accounts before she could complete whatever she was planning. Rebecca nodded. Which brings us to the really interesting part. Brittany made some calls yesterday after she couldn't access the accounts. Calls to a real estate agent in California. California? Hunter and I said simultaneously. Apparently, she and Kevin have been planning to relocate after the divorce. They've been looking at properties in San Diego, using your projected settlement as their budget. Hunter was quiet for a long moment, processing this information. So she wasn't just having an affair. She was planning to take me for everything and disappear with him to California. That appears to be the plan. Yes, using the children as leverage for a larger settlement, then relocating and limiting your access to them. The children, Lily and Max, who had no idea their mother was planning to uproot their lives for a man they'd never met. I felt a surge of protective fury that surprised me with its intensity. Over my dead body, I said. Actually, Rebecca smiled, over her legal dead body, because none of this is going to happen now. When we file these papers, Brittany is going to discover that adultery and abandonment have consequences, especially when there are children involved, and when she's been stealing marital assets. My phone rang. Brittany again. Want to have some fun? Rebecca asked, her eyes twinkling with something that might have been mischief. Hunter looked at me, then at Rebecca. What kind of fun? Answer it, Rebecca said. But let me talk to her. As your attorney, I can say things you can't. And I've been looking forward to this conversation. I answered the phone and handed it to Rebecca without saying a word. Hello, Brittany, Rebecca said pleasantly. This is Rebecca Morgan, Hunter's attorney. I understand you're having some difficulties in the Maldives. The pause was so long I wondered if the call had dropped. Who is this? Brittany's voice was small, uncertain. As I said, I'm Hunter's lawyer. And I'm calling to inform you that divorce papers will be filed first thing Monday morning. You're welcome to contest them, of course, but I should warn you that fighting this particular divorce will be expensive and ultimately futile. You can't. Hunter's not thinking clearly. Hunter is thinking very clearly, clear enough to provide me with recorded evidence of your admissions today, clear enough to document your abandonment during his medical crisis, clear enough to authorize me to take steps to protect his assets and his children from any further damage. Rebecca was smiling as she spoke, clearly enjoying herself. Now, here's what's going to happen. You're going to find your own way home from your romantic vacation. When you arrive, you'll discover that your access to marital assets has been permanently revoked. The locks on the family home have been changed, and your belongings are being packed for pickup. You can't do that. Actually, we can. Adultery voids your prenuptial agreement's protections, but it doesn't void its restrictions. And abandonment during medical emergency is grounds for immediate asset protection under Georgia law. I watched Hunter's face as Rebecca systematically destroyed whatever fantasy Brittany had been living in. He looked like a man who just realized he was finally free. But that's not even the best part, Rebecca continued. The best part is that all those California real estate listings you've been looking at, all those plans you and Kevin made for your new life, that was all banking on a settlement that no longer exists. The sound coming through the phone was somewhere between a sob and a scream. See you in court, Brittany, Rebecca said pleasantly, and ended the call. Hunter started laughing, then real laughter that seemed to come from somewhere deep inside him that had been locked away for too long. I think, he said to Rebecca, this is the beginning of a beautiful friendship. 3 days after Hunter's awakening in the hospital, I was making breakfast in his kitchen when Lily and Max burst through the front door with their Aunt Samantha, back from their weekend with cousins in Connecticut. They were completely oblivious to the family drama that had unfolded in their absence. Grandma, Lily launched herself into my arms. Aunt Samantha took us to the aquarium and we saw sharks. That sounds wonderful, sweetheart, I sadly said, holding her tight and trying not to think about how their mother had planned to move them across the country without their father's knowledge or consent. Max, always more observant than his 8-year-old sister, looked around the kitchen with curious eyes. Where's Mommy and why are you making breakfast? Is Daddy still sleeping? Before I could formulate an age-appropriate answer, Samantha appeared in the doorway, her expression grim. Mom, we need to talk. I settled the children with cartoons and bowls of cereal, then followed Samantha onto the back patio. Samantha had always been the practical one in the family, the sister who saw through nonsense with surgical precision. Hunter called me from the hospital this morning, she said without preamble. He told me about Brittany and the divorce. He's being discharged this afternoon, I confirmed. The doctors say he's stable enough to recover at home with proper care and monitoring. But what he didn't tell me was how we're going to explain this to 2 children who think their mother is at a yoga retreat. Samantha's voice dropped lower. What did you tell them when they asked where she was? That she was taking care of some personal business and would be back soon. But Samantha, kids aren't stupid. Lily's already asking why Mommy didn't call them yesterday like she promised. Through the patio door, I could see Lily and Max curled up together on the couch, Lily's protective arm around her little brother as they watched their show. The innocence on their faces made my heart ache. Hunter wants to tell them the truth, I said. Age appropriately, but honestly. And what is the age-appropriate truth? That their mother abandoned their dying father to have a romantic vacation with another man. When Samantha put it that way, it sounded even worse than it was, and it was already pretty bad. The truth is that Mommy and Daddy are having some problems, and they're going to live in different houses for a while, I said, repeating what Hunter and Rebecca had discussed. The truth is that Daddy loves them more than anything and will never leave them. Samantha studied my face. And what about the part where Mommy tried to steal Daddy's money and move them to California without telling anyone? That part stays between the adults for now. Good, Samantha said. Because I have some information that's going to make this situation even more complicated. I felt my stomach drop. What kind of information? I got a call from my friend Danielle this morning. She works at Family Services. Apparently, someone filed a complaint yesterday claiming that Hunter is an unfit father due to his recent medical crisis and that his children are being cared for by an elderly woman with no legal authority. The words hit me like a physical blow. Brittany, I whispered. That would be my guess. She's trying to get the children removed from Hunter's care and placed with social services until she can return and claim custody. I sank into one of the patio chairs, my mind racing. Can she do that? She can try, and if Hunter is still in the hospital and you're the only one caring for the children... Samantha left the sentence unfinished, but I understood the implication. What do? We fight back. But first, we need to make sure you have legal standing to care for these children. Rebecca is already working on emergency custody papers, but they'll take time. Inside, Max giggled at something on television. The sound so pure and happy, it broke my heart. These children had no idea their mother was trying to have them taken away from everyone who loved them. Samantha, I said quietly, there's something else. Something I haven't told Hunter yet. She waited. I think Brittany has been planning this for longer than we realized. 6 months ago. She asked me to update my will, said it would be good for the children's security if I named her as a backup guardian in case something happened to Hunter. Samantha's face went pale. Please tell me you didn't. I didn't. Something about the request felt off, but now I understand what she was doing. She was positioning herself to have legal claim to the children and access to your estate if Hunter was deemed unfit or if something happened to him. Exactly. The sound of a car in the driveway interrupted our conversation. Through the front window, I could see a taxi pulling up, and my blood ran cold when I recognized the figure getting out. Brittany was home, and judging by the fury on her face as she stormed toward the front door, she was ready for war. I had maybe 30 seconds before Brittany reached the front door. 30 seconds to decide how to handle the moment when the children saw their mother for the first time since her world had imploded. Samantha, I said quickly, take the children upstairs now. Why? Because their mother is about to make a scene that will traumatize them for life, and I'm not letting that happen. Samantha moved fast, scooping up Max while firmly taking Lily's hand. Come on, kids. Let's go see if we can find that book about sea creatures Daddy mentioned. But Grandma, the show isn't over. We'll finish it later, sweetheart, I said, my voice steady despite my racing heart. The front door rattled with aggressive knocking just as Samantha disappeared upstairs with the children. I counted to 10, smoothed my hair, and opened the door with the same calm I'd used to face down intimidating doctors and belligerent insurance agents over the years. Brittany looked like hell. Her usually perfect blonde hair was unwashed and pulled back in a messy ponytail. Her designer clothes were wrinkled, and her makeup couldn't hide the dark circles under her eyes. But it was her expression that told the real story pure, undiluted rage mixed with desperation. Where are my children? She demanded, pushing past me into the house. Your children are safe and cared for, I replied, closing the door calmly. Which is more than I can say for their father when you abandoned him. She whirled around, her eyes blazing. I didn't abandon anyone. I was trapped in another country with no money because I protected my son's assets from a woman who was stealing them to fund her affair. That money belongs to me, too. Actually, it doesn't. Your prenuptial agreement was quite clear about that, especially in cases of adultery. Brittany's face crumpled then, the rage giving way to something that looked almost like panic. Melanie, please, I know how this looks, but you don't understand. I understand perfectly. I understand that you've been planning to leave my son for months. I understand that you were going to take his children and his money and disappear to California with your boyfriend. And I understand that you called Family Services yesterday to try to have these children removed from their father's care. That last accusation hit home. Brittany's face went white. confirming what Samantha had suspected. How did you? Because unlike you, I have friends who actually care about this family's well-being. Brittany straightened, and I could see her regrouping, searching for a new angle of attack. Where is Hunter still recovering? No thanks to you, I said coldly. I want to see him. I'm sure you do. Unfortunately, he doesn't want to see you. In fact, you're not welcome in this house anymore. This is my house, too. Not anymore. Check with Rebecca Morgan if you have questions about the legal details. Brittany's composure finally cracked completely. You can't keep me from my children. I'm not keeping you from anything. Your own choices did that. Mommy. We both turned to see Lily standing at the top of the stairs, her face confused and uncertain. Behind her, Samantha was reaching for her, but Lily had heard the shouting and come to investigate. Baby! Brittany's voice transformed instantly, becoming the syrupy sweet tone she used when she wanted something. Mommy's home. Lily hesitated, looking between her mother and me with an expression too mature for her 8 years. Why were you yelling at Grandma? We weren't yelling, sweetheart. We were just having a discussion. Come give Mommy a hug. But Lily didn't move. Instead, she asked the question that shattered whatever illusion Brittany might have had about controlling this narrative. Mommy, Daddy's in the hospital. Why weren't you here when he got sick? The silence stretched between us, heavy with the weight of truth that couldn't be sugar-coated or explained away. Brittany looked up at her daughter, and for the first time since she'd walked through that door, she seemed to realize that her actions had consequences beyond bank accounts and divorce papers. I was traveling, baby. I came as soon as I could. But Grandma was here, Lily observed. Grandma took care of Daddy. Brittany tried to recover. Well, I'm here now, and I'm going to take you and Max home. This is home, Lily said firmly. And Daddy needs us here. I watched Brittany realize that she'd lost more than just her marriage and her financial security. She'd lost her children's unquestioning trust. And unlike court orders and bank accounts, that was something no lawyer could help her get back. The standoff in the living room was broken by the sound of another car in the driveway. Through the window, I could see Rebecca Morgan getting out of her black sedan with a folder of papers and a determined expression that suggested she'd been expecting this confrontation. Expecting someone? Brittany asked, her voice tight with suspicion. Always, I replied calmly. Rebecca knocked once before entering, her professional demeanor intact despite the obvious tension in the room. Mrs. Pope, she said to Brittany with cool politeness. I was hoping to find you here. I'm here to collect my children and my belongings, Brittany said, crossing her arms defensively. I'm afraid that's not going to be possible, Rebecca replied, opening her folder. I have here a temporary restraining order preventing you from removing the children from their father's custody, as well as a court order for supervised visitation only. Brittany's face went from pale to bright red. You can't do that. Actually, we can. And we have. Rebecca handed her a set of papers. Your attempt to have the children removed from their father's care through family services while he was hospitalized was ill-advised. I was protecting them. From what a loving father and grandmother who've been caring for them while you were on vacation with your boyfriend. Lily was still standing at the top of the stairs, listening to every word. I could see her trying to process information that was too complex and painful for a child her age. Lily, sweetheart, I called softly. Why don't you go help Aunt Samantha with Max? But Lily shook her head. I want to stay. I want to understand what's happening. Brittany looked up at her daughter, and for a moment, I saw something like remorse cross her face. Baby, grown-up stuff is complicated. Are you and Daddy getting divorced? Lily asked directly. The question hung in the air like a bomb nobody wanted to defuse. That's something Daddy and I need to discuss, Brittany said carefully. Daddy already discussed it, Lily said with devastating 8-year-old honesty. He told Aunt Samantha that you've been lying and that you don't want to be married anymore. I watched Brittany's carefully constructed facade crumble as she realized her children had already been told a version of the truth that painted her as the villain she'd actually become. That's not Hunter had no right to poison you against me. He didn't poison anyone, Lily said firmly. He just told us the truth, Rebecca stepped forward. Mrs. Pope, I think it would be best if you left now. You can schedule supervised visits through the family court system. Supervised visits. These are my children. Children you abandoned during a family crisis. Children you attempted to have removed from their father's care through false allegations. Children you were planning to relocate without their father's knowledge or consent. Each accusation hit like a hammer blow, and I could see Brittany deflating with the weight of her own choices. I want to see Hunter, she said finally, her voice small and desperate. Mr. Pope has made it clear he doesn't wish to see you, except in the presence of attorneys. Please, Brittany turned to me, tears streaming down her face. Melanie, please. I know I made mistakes, but I love my children. I love my family. For a moment, looking at this broken woman begging for forgiveness, I felt a flicker of pity. But then I remembered my son lying unconscious in that hospital bed alone, because his wife was too busy with her affair to answer emergency calls. If you loved your family, I said quietly, you would have been here when they needed you. I can change. I can fix this. Some things can't be fixed. Brittany. Some betrayals run too deep. Lily spoke from the stairs, her young voice carrying a wisdom that broke my heart. Mommy, did you really leave when Daddy was sick? Brittany looked up at her daughter, and I could see her struggling with whether to tell the truth or try one more lie. Yes, she whispered finally. Yes, I did. Why? It was such a simple question from a child who deserved a simple answer, but the truth was too complicated, too ugly, too adult for explanation. Because, Brittany said, her voice breaking, I made very, very bad choices. Lily nodded solemnly, as if this finally made sense to her 8-year-old understanding of right and wrong. I think you should go now, Lily said with quiet finality. Daddy needs to get better, and you make everything sad. And that, I realized, was the most devastating judgment of all. Delivered not by lawyers or judges or angry adults, but by a child who had simply observed that her mother's presence brought sadness instead of joy. Brittany left without another word, her shoulders shaking with silent sobs. Rebecca watched her go, then turned to me. That went better than expected, she said quietly. Did it? She didn't fight the court orders. She admitted guilt in front of witnesses, and most importantly, the children saw her true character for themselves. I looked up at Lily, still standing on the stairs, looking older than her 8 years. Are you okay, sweetheart? Lily considered the question with the seriousness she seemed to bring to everything lately. I'm sad, she said finally, but I'm not surprised, and that perhaps was the saddest thing of all. 2 days later, Hunter was home from the hospital, settled in the downstairs guest room that we'd converted into a temporary bedroom to avoid the stairs. The children had adapted to the new routine with surprising resilience, taking turns helping their father with simple tasks and proudly reporting to me when he'd taken his medications or eaten his lunch. Rebecca Morgan had become a fixture at the house, working from the dining room table as she built what she called an ironclad case against Brittany. Jessica Harper's investigative work had unearthed even more evidence of the affair and financial misdeeds, including a secret bank account in Brittany's name with over $25,000 of redirected family funds. But it was the discovery of emails between Brittany and a real estate agent in San Diego that truly cemented our understanding of her plans. For months, she'd been researching school districts, property values, and California custody laws, laying the groundwork for her escape with the children. She never intended to let Hunter have meaningful access to Lily and Max, Rebecca explained as we reviewed the emails in Hunter's makeshift bedroom. Look at this exchange from April. She specifically asks about school enrollment without requiring the father's signature. Hunter, propped up against pillows but growing stronger each day, shook his head in disbelief. She was methodical about it, planning every detail. The good news, Rebecca continued, is that all of this is admissible and damning. No judge will look favorably on a parent who conspired to remove children from their home state without the other parent's knowledge or consent. What about the complaint to family services? I asked. Could that still cause problems? Rebecca smiled grimly. Already handled. My colleague at the department clarified Hunter's medical situation and your legal status as the children's grandmother. The case was closed this morning. Hunter reached for my hand. Thank you, Mom, for everything. I don't know what would have happened if you hadn't shown up at the hospital that day. I squeezed his fingers gently. That's what mothers do. We show up, the doorbell rang, and I excused myself to answer it. Samantha stood on the porch with a casserole dish and a worried expression. I just got a call from Danielle again, she said as I ushered her inside. Brittany's trying a new angle. She's claiming Hunter's heart condition makes him unable to care for the children properly, and that his recovery will take months of intensive rehabilitation. That's ridiculous, I scoffed. The doctors have already cleared him for normal activities with reasonable limitations, and he has me and you to help. I know that, but Family Services has to investigate any claim involving children's welfare. Samantha set the casserole on the kitchen counter. Danielle says to expect a home visit tomorrow. Fine, I said. My jaw set firmly. Let them come. They'll see a loving father with an excellent support system and 2 well-adjusted children who are exactly where they need to be. Samantha nodded, then lowered her voice. Have you told Hunter about Brittany asking you to change your will? Not yet. He's had enough shocks for now. Once this Family Services issue is resolved, I'll bring it up. The next morning, a caseworker named Ms. Patterson arrived promptly at 10 a.m. She was younger than I expected, but her professional demeanor and keen observational skills quickly dispelled any notion that she might be easily manipulated. I'll need to speak with Mr. Pope privately, she informed me after introducing herself. Then with the children, if they're available. And finally, with you. Mrs. Pope? Of course, I agreed. Hunter is in the downstairs bedroom. The children are at school but will be home around 3. Ms. Patterson spent nearly an hour with Hunter. When she emerged, her expression gave nothing away. But Hunter texted me immediately. Went well. She's thorough but fair. Her interview with me was equally comprehensive, covering everything from my relationship with my son and grandchildren to my health status and ability to assist with childcare. Mrs. Pope, I understand you're 68 years old, she said, consulting her notes. Do you have any health concerns that might impact your ability to help care for 2 active children? I'm in excellent health, I replied. I walk 3 miles every morning, volunteer at the library twice a week, and until recently, was considering taking tennis lessons. My last physical showed nothing more concerning than slightly elevated cholesterol, which is well controlled with diet. She nodded, making notes. And your relationship with the children? How would you characterize it? I've been actively involved in their lives since birth. Before Brittany began limiting my access about 2 years ago, I saw them several times a week. I know their favorite foods, their friends' names, their nighttime routines, and which stuffed animals must be present at bedtime. Ms. Patterson's eyebrows rose slightly. You say Mrs. Pope limited your access to the children. Yes, gradually at first canceled plans, excuses about schedule conflicts, then more overtly, suggesting I was too tired or too old to manage them properly. And why do you think she did this? I considered my answer carefully. I believe Brittany was systematically isolating Hunter and the children from family members who might notice problems in the marriage or question her decisions. That's a serious allegation, Mrs. Pope. Yes, it is. And the evidence supports it. Not just my experiences, but emails and text messages showing her deliberate efforts to relocate the children to California without Hunter's knowledge or consent. By the time the children arrived home from school, Ms. Patterson had reviewed our documentation and spoken with Hunter's doctors by phone. Her interviews with Lily and Max were conducted gently, with me present but silent, as she asked age-appropriate questions about their home life, their feelings about their parents, and their understanding of the current situation. Daddy's heart got sick, Max explained solemnly. But Grandma made him better, and now he has to eat yucky green stuff. Ms. Patterson smiled. And what about your mom? Do you miss her? Max nodded. She went on a trip and didn't say goodbye. That wasn't nice. Lily, more perceptive as always, added, Mom and Dad are getting divorced because Mom didn't want to be married anymore. She has a new friend named Kevin that she likes better than Dad. The caseworker's expression remained neutral. And how do you feel about that, Lily? Sad, but Dad says it's not our fault. And we'll always have him and Grandma and Aunt Samantha, no matter what. When Ms. Patterson finally prepared to leave, she paused at the door. Mrs. Pope, based on my assessment today, I see no reason for concern about the children's current living arrangement. Mr. Pope has appropriate medical clearance for parenting activities, and your presence provides excellent additional support. I'll be filing my report recommending the case be closed with no further action needed. Relief flooded through me. Thank you. However, she added, given the contentious nature of the divorce proceedings, I would suggest that Mr. Pope consult with his attorney about filing for sole physical custody with supervised visitation for Mrs. Pope, at least temporarily. The allegations she's made, combined with her demonstrated willingness to attempt to remove the children from their home environment, raises some red flags for me professionally. I nodded. We'll discuss it with Rebecca right away. After Ms. Patterson left, I found Hunter in the kitchen, attempting to make a cup of tea despite doctor's orders to rest. For heaven's sake, I scolded gently, taking the kettle from him. You're supposed to be resting. I've been resting for days, he grumbled, but allowed me to guide him to a chair. What did Patterson say? She's recommending the case be closed. No concerns about our current arrangement. Hunter's shoulders slumped with relief. Thank God. One less thing to worry about. She did suggest we talk to Rebecca about filing for sole physical custody with supervised visitation for Brittany. Already in progress, Hunter confirmed. Rebecca filed the paperwork yesterday, anticipating a favorable report from Family Services. I set a cup of properly made tea in front of him. You're getting ahead of this. Good. I have to. Brittany's desperation makes her dangerous. She's lost her meal ticket, her lifestyle, and now potentially her access to the children. She won't go down without a fight. I hesitated, then decided it was time. Hunter, there's something else you should know. Something about Brittany that I haven't told you yet. His expression grew wary. What now? 6 months ago, she asked me to update my will. Specifically, she wanted me to name her as the children's guardian if anything happened to you. Hunter's teacup froze halfway to his lips. She what? At the time, I thought it was just an odd request. I declined, saying I'd already made appropriate arrangements for the children's care. But now, looking back, she was planning for a scenario where I might be incapacitated or worse, Hunter finished, his legal mind immediately grasping the implications. If something happened to me, and you'd named her guardian in your will, she'd have control of the children and potentially access to my estate through them. Hunter set down his cup with a shaking hand. That's disturbing on a whole new level. I'm telling you this now because it shows the extent of her planning. This wasn't a spontaneous affair that got out of hand. This was calculated. Hunter was quiet for a long moment, processing this new information. When he finally spoke, his voice was steady but cold. I want you to call Rebecca. Tell her everything you just told me, every detail. This goes beyond divorce strategy now. This is about protecting our family from someone who might be willing to go to extreme lengths to get what she wants. I nodded, already reaching for my phone. I'll call her right now. Rebecca's response was immediate and decisive. Within hours, she had drafted additional legal documents, including an emergency modification to Hunter's existing will that explicitly prohibited Brittany from having any guardianship rights over the children in the event of his death or incapacitation, naming Samantha and her husband as primary guardians instead. We're also adding a provision that creates a trust for the children that Brittany cannot access under any circumstances, Rebecca explained during a hastily arranged video call that evening. And I've expedited the hearing for the temporary custody order to tomorrow morning. Is that even possible? I asked, surprised at the speed. I called in a few favors, Rebecca admitted. And the family court judge was particularly moved by the evidence of Brittany's attempt to manipulate the family services system, combined with her abandonment during a medical crisis. Hunter leaned forward, wincing slightly at the movement. What do you need from us? Just your electronic signature on these documents tonight. I'll handle everything else. Rebecca's expression softened slightly. Hunter, how are you feeling truly? Like someone who just discovered his wife might have been planning his demise, he said dryly. But physically, better every day. Good, because we may need you to appear in court next week if Brittany contests the temporary orders, which I fully expect she will. After ending the call with Rebecca, Hunter and I sat in silence for a long moment. Outside, we could hear Lily and Max playing in the backyard under Samantha's watchful eye, their laughter a stark contrast to the heavy conversation we'd just had. Do you think she was actually planning to... I couldn't bring myself to finish the sentence. Harm me, Hunter shook his head. No, I don't think Brittany would go that far. But creating circumstances where she might benefit if something naturally happened to me that I can believe. He ran a hand through his hair, a gesture so like his father's that my heart ached. The thing is, Mom, I never saw this coming. Not really. Even when I suspected the affair, I thought it was just about sex or excitement. I never imagined this level of calculation. People can hide their true nature for a long time, I said softly, especially from those who love them most. Hunter reached for my hand. Thank God you saw through her. If you hadn't shown up at the hospital that day... But I did, I reminded him, and we're handling this together. One step at a time. That night, after the children were asleep and Samantha had gone home, I sat on the patio looking up at the stars, trying to make sense of everything that had happened. In just 1 week, our family had been turned upside down. Hunter's health crisis, Brittany's betrayal, the ongoing legal battle it was almost too much to process. My phone chimed with a text message from an unknown number. I opened it warily. Melanie, it's Brittany. We need to talk. Tomorrow, 9 a.m., Riverside Park. Come alone. It's about Hunter and the kids. Something you need to know. I stared at the message, debating whether to respond. Was this another manipulation, a trap of some kind, or did Brittany actually have something important to share? After careful consideration, I typed a reply. I'll be there, but I'm bringing Rebecca Morgan with me. The response came immediately. No lawyers, just you. It's life or death. Melanie, I'm not exaggerating. Life or death. The phrase sent a chill through me. What could Brittany possibly know that would warrant such dramatic language against my better judgment? I agreed to meet her alone, but I had no intention of walking into whatever scenario Brittany was planning without protection. I forwarded the entire exchange to Rebecca and Jessica, with instructions to alert authorities if they didn't hear from me by 10 a.m. Then I called Samantha. I need a favor, I told her. Can you come stay with Hunter and the kids tomorrow morning? There's something I need to do. Mom, what's going on? Samantha's voice was instantly suspicious. Brittany wants to meet. She claims it's important, life or death were her exact words. That's obviously a trap. You can't seriously be considering going alone. Of course not, I assured her. Rebecca and Jessica both know, and I'll keep my phone's location sharing active the entire time, but I need to know what she's playing at. Sam, if there's even a chance she has information that could affect Hunter or the children's safety. Samantha was quiet for a moment. Fine, but you text me every 15 minutes, or I'm calling the police. I mean it. Mom, deal, I promised. As I prepared for bed that night, I couldn't shake the feeling that tomorrow's meeting would be a turning point, though, whether for better or worse. I couldn't begin to guess. Whatever Brittany had to say, I was determined to face it head-on, armed with the same protective instinct that had guided me since the moment I'd walked into that hospital room and found my son fighting for his life. Some battles you choose, others choose you. This one had definitely chosen me, and I had no intention of backing down now. Riverside Park was quiet at 8:55 a.m. The morning joggers already finished with their routes, the mothers with strollers not yet arrived for their daily walks. I chose a bench near the small lake, positioned where I could see anyone approaching from all directions. The weight of my phone in my pocket was reassuring location sharing active. Rebecca and Jessica both on alert. Samantha expecting a text every 15 minutes. At precisely 9 a.m., Brittany appeared on the path, walking toward me with none of her usual confident stride. She looked even worse than she had at the house days earlier, thinner, paler, with dark circles under her eyes that makeup couldn't conceal. She wore jeans and a simple t-shirt, a far cry from her usual designer outfits. "Thank you for coming," she said as she sat beside me, leaving a careful distance between us. "You said it was important," I replied, keeping my voice neutral. "Life or death, I believe were your words." Brittany glanced around nervously, as if checking whether we were truly alone. "It is, but not in the way you might think." I waited, saying nothing. Years of parenting had taught me that silence often elicits more information than questions. "First, I want you to know that I love Hunter," she began. "I know you don't believe that, but it's true." "What happened?" "It's complicated." "Adultery usually is," I said dryly. She flinched. "I deserve that. I deserve all of it, the divorce, the judgment, even losing custody. But Kevin, he's not who I thought he was. Not who any of us thought he was." Something in her tone sent a warning prickle up my spine. "What do you mean, when you froze the accounts, when I was stranded in the Maldives?" Kevin changed. At first, he was just angry, ranting about the money and how we were stuck. But then he started talking about other ways to get money from Hunter's family. My stomach tightened. "What other ways?" Brittany's hands were trembling as she clasped them in her lap. "He knows about your financial situation, Melanie. He knows about your investments, your life insurance policy, your property. He's been researching your family for months." "How would he know any of that?" Brittany's face crumpled with shame. "Because I told him. I gave him access to financial documents, thinking we were planning a future together. But he wasn't planning a future with me. He was planning a future with your money." I felt sick. "What kind of plans?" "He has connections to people who arrange accidents for elderly people. Make them look natural." Her voice dropped to a whisper. "He showed me articles about other cases, other families where wealthy seniors died unexpectedly and their assets went to younger relatives." The world seemed to spin around me. "You're saying he was planning to have me killed?" "Not just you," Brittany whispered. "You and Hunter. Make it look like a murder-suicide maybe, or a car accident. Leave the children orphaned so I could inherit everything as their guardian and take them away." I gripped the bench, trying to process this information. "And you went along with this?" "No." Her eyes filled with tears. "I mean, at first, I thought he was just talking crazy because he was angry about the money. But then he started asking specific questions about your routines, about when you were alone, about the children's schedules. When did you realize he was serious?" "When he showed me the life insurance policy he'd taken out on you." My blood turned to ice. "What insurance policy?" "He somehow got himself listed as a beneficiary on a policy tied to your estate. I don't understand all the legal details, but he showed me the paperwork. This was impossible. I'd never signed any documents that would give Kevin Bishop access to my estate or insurance." "Brittany, I need you to tell me exactly what documents you gave him access to." For the next 30 minutes, Brittany detailed a systematic campaign of identity theft and financial fraud that made my earlier concerns about frozen bank accounts seem quaint. Kevin had used the information she'd provided to forge documents, create false insurance policies, and position himself to profit from the deaths of people he'd never met. "Why are you telling me this now?" I asked finally. "Because when I realized what he was really planning, I tried to back out. Told him I couldn't go through with it." Her voice broke. "That's when he threatened me. Said he didn't need me alive to collect the money. He tried to kill me. Melanie, made it look like a suicide attempt. So if I survived, no one would believe anything I said." I stared at this woman who had betrayed my family in every possible way, who was now claiming to be saving us from an even worse betrayal. "Why should I believe you?" Brittany reached into her bag and pulled out a phone. "Because I recorded everything. Every conversation. Every plan. Every threat. I thought I was documenting our relationship, but I was actually documenting a murder plot." She handed me the phone, and with shaking fingers, I pressed play on the first recording. Kevin's voice. Casual and cold, filled the quiet park air. The old lady's got to go first. Make it look natural. Maybe a fall down the stairs. Then we wait a few months and take care of the son. Car accident. Maybe something that doesn't leave the kids traumatized, because we need them to trust you when you get custody. I stopped the recording, my hands shaking so violently I nearly dropped the phone. There are 12 hours of recordings, Brittany said quietly. Everything you need to put him away forever and protect your family. I looked at this broken woman who had betrayed us, who had nearly destroyed us, and who was now potentially saving our lives. What do you want in return? I asked, my voice surprisingly steady. I want you to forgive me, she whispered. And I want you to help me make sure Kevin never hurts anyone ever again. I took a deep breath, my mind racing through the implications. If what Brittany was saying was true, and the recording certainly suggested it was, then our family was in immediate danger from a man who had already attempted murder once. I need to call Rebecca, I said, already reaching for my phone. No, Brittany grabbed my arm. Not yet. Kevin has people watching your house, watching Hunter. He has someone inside Rebecca's firm feeding him information. We need to go directly to the FBI. The FBI, Brittany. This crosses state lines. Melanie, Kevin has done this before in other states. Identity theft, fraud, murder for hire. It's all federal. Her eyes were wide with genuine fear. Please, you don't have to trust me, but trust the evidence. It's all on that phone. I studied her face, looking for signs of deception, but all I saw was terror and what appeared to be genuine remorse. If this is some kind of manipulation, it's not, she interrupted. I know I've lied to you. I know I've hurt Hunter and betrayed our family, but I'm not lying about this. Kevin is dangerous, and he's planning to kill you both, soon. The certainty in her voice sent a chill through me. I thought of Hunter at home, still recovering, vulnerable, of Lily and Max, innocent children who had no idea of the danger circling their family. How do we proceed? I asked finally. Relief flooded Brittany's face. I have a contact at the FBI, Special Agent Thomas Wilson. He's expecting us at 10:30. You've already spoken to the FBI. She nodded. Yesterday. But they need your testimony too, and they need this phone officially entered into evidence. As we stood to leave, Brittany grabbed my arm again. Melanie, one more thing. Don't tell Hunter yet. Not until Kevin is in custody. For his own safety. I hesitated, uncomfortable with keeping something this significant from my son. But the thought of putting him in further danger made the decision for me. Fine, but as soon as Kevin is arrested, Hunter needs to know everything. Of course, Brittany agreed. And Melanie, thank you. I know I don't deserve your help after everything I've done. But, this isn't about you, I cut her off. This is about protecting my family. That's all. As we walked toward the parking lot, I sent a quick text to Samantha. Still with Brittany. Situation complicated but under control. We'll explain everything later. Don't worry. Little did I know that the rabbit hole we were about to enter went deeper than any of us could have imagined, and that Kevin Bishop was just the tip of a very dangerous iceberg. The Atlanta FBI field office was housed in a nondescript building that belied the critical work taking place inside. As Brittany and I were escorted through security checkpoints and into a windowless conference room, I sent another quick text to Samantha. Meeting running long, everything okay at home? Her reply came immediately. All fine, Hunter resting, kids watching a movie. Where are you? I hesitated, then typed, with Brittany. Important information about Kevin. We'll explain later. We waited nearly 20 minutes before Special Agent Thomas Wilson entered the room. He was younger than I expected, maybe early 40s, with close-cropped salt and pepper hair and the alert eyes of someone who missed nothing. Mrs. Pope? He nodded to me, then turned to Brittany. Mrs. Pope, thank you both for coming in. It's Ms. Pope for me, Brittany corrected quietly. Soon enough, anyway. Agent Wilson sat across from us, placing a digital recorder on the table. I'm going to record this conversation, if that's all right with you both. Standard procedure. We nodded our consent. Mrs. Pope Melanie, he began. Has Brittany explained why you're here today? She claims that Kevin Bishop is planning to murder me and my son for insurance money, I replied, my voice remarkably steady despite the surreal nature of the conversation. And do you have reason to believe these claims might be credible? I reached into my purse and pulled out the phone Brittany had given me. I've heard recordings that certainly suggest as much. What I don't understand is how any of this could be possible. I've never met Kevin Bishop. I've certainly never signed any insurance policies naming him as a beneficiary. Agent Wilson nodded, as if my confusion confirmed something for him. That's where this gets interesting. Kevin Bishop isn't just a personal trainer with a taste for wealthy women. Based on our preliminary investigation, he appears to be part of a sophisticated network that targets affluent families, particularly those with intergenerational wealth and complex family dynamics. A network, I repeated. You mean there are more people involved in this? We believe so. Bishop has operated in at least 3 other states that we know of: Florida, Arizona, and California. In each case, the pattern was similar. He would begin a relationship with a woman who had access to family wealth, use that relationship to gather financial information, and then create fraudulent financial instruments that would benefit him in the event of untimely deaths. Brittany was staring at the table, her shoulders hunched. I never knew, she whispered. I thought I was special. I thought we were in love. Agent Wilson's expression softened slightly. Ms. Pope, you're not the first woman he's manipulated this way, and without your recordings, we might never have connected the dots between these cases. He turned back to me. As for how this was accomplished, identity theft has become increasingly sophisticated. With the right personal information, creating fraudulent policies is unfortunately not difficult, especially when the criminal has inside help. Inside help? I asked. What do you mean? We believe Bishop works with accomplices in financial institutions, insurance companies, and possibly even law firms. People who can process paperwork without triggering the usual verification protocols. The implications were staggering. Not just Kevin, but an entire network of criminals targeting families like ours. How many deaths have been connected to this network? I asked, dreading the answer. Agent Wilson's pause told me everything before he spoke. We've identified 3 suspicious deaths in the past 18 months that fit the pattern, all ruled natural causes or accidents initially, all benefiting individuals connected to Bishop or his associates. My hand flew to my mouth. My God. Which is why Brittany's recordings are so valuable, Wilson continued. They provide direct evidence of criminal intent before any harm was done. In your case, we have a chance to prevent a tragedy rather than investigate one after the fact. Brittany finally looked up. What happens now? Now we move quickly. Based on the evidence you've provided and our existing investigation, we're preparing arrest warrants for Bishop and 2 known associates. But we need to proceed carefully. If Bishop suspects he's been exposed, he might accelerate his plans or destroy evidence. The thought sent ice through my veins. My family, are they in danger right now? We've already stationed undercover agents near your son's home, Wilson assured me. They've been in place since Brittany first contacted us yesterday. Your family is being monitored discreetly, and we'd know immediately if Bishop or anyone associated with him approached the property. Relief flooded through me, followed quickly by a renewed sense of urgency. What do you need from me? First, a formal statement about your financial arrangements, insurance policies, and any documents you might have signed recently. Then we'll need you to review some photographs. See if you recognize anyone who might have approached you in a professional capacity over the past year. I nodded, trying to think of any unusual interactions. There was a new financial advisor who contacted me about 6 months ago. Said he was from my bank's wealth management division. I declined his services, but he was quite persistent. Wilson made a note. We'll need a description. And about 3 months ago, someone claiming to be from my insurance company came to my house for what they called a routine policy review. I thought it was odd, but with identity theft so common these days, I asked for credentials and called the company to verify before letting him in. Did you sign anything during that visit? I frowned, trying to remember. Just a form confirming the visit had taken place. He said it was for their records. Wilson and his colleague exchanged glances. That could be enough. A signature on what looked like an innocuous form could be transferred to other documents. The next 2 hours were a blur of formal statements, photographs, and increasingly disturbing revelations about how vulnerable we'd all been to this sophisticated operation. By the time we finished, it was past 2 p.m., and I had multiple missed texts from Samantha. "I need to let my daughter know I'm okay," I told Wilson. "She's worried." "Of course, but please don't disclose your location or the nature of our conversation. Just let her know you're safe and we'll be home soon." I sent Samantha a quick message. "Still with Brittany. Everything fine. We'll be home by dinner." Her reply came immediately. "Mom, what is going on? Hunter is asking questions. Should I be worried?" "No need to worry," I typed back. "Important business matter. Tell Hunter I'll explain everything tonight." As I put my phone away, Agent Wilson returned with a fresh cup of coffee for me. "We've made significant progress today, Mrs. Pope. Based on your statement and the evidence Brittany provided, we're expediting the warrants. With luck, we'll have Bishop in custody by tomorrow morning." "So soon? We can't risk waiting, not with what we know about his plans." He hesitated. "There is one more thing we'd like to discuss with you, a way you might be able to help us gather additional evidence against Bishop's associates." Brittany, who had been quiet for most of the afternoon, looked up sharply. "No, absolutely not. We agreed she wouldn't be put at risk." Wilson held up a hand. "It's minimal risk. With agents present at all times, we simply need Mrs. Pope to meet with her insurance agent, the legitimate one, to request copies of her policies. That meeting would likely draw out whoever inside the company has been working with Bishop." "You want to use my mother as bait?" Brittany's voice rose incredulously. "After everything I've told you about how dangerous these people are, her description of me as my mother wasn't lost on me, though now wasn't the time to analyze the slip." "It's a controlled environment," Wilson assured us both. "The insurance office, during business hours, with agents present, Mrs. Pope would simply be requesting normal documentation that any policyholder has a right to see." I considered the proposal. "And this would help you identify Bishop's accomplices. It would, right now, we have solid evidence against Bishop himself, but only circumstantial connections to his network. If we can identify and arrest his associates as well, we dismantle the entire operation rather than just removing one player." Brittany was shaking her head. "It's too dangerous. These people have killed before. In private homes, isolated locations, or situations made to look like accidents," Wilson countered. "Not in broad daylight in a public office with witnesses present." I thought of Hunter and the children, of other families who might be targeted if this network continued to operate. "I'll do it," I said firmly. "On one condition, my son needs to know what's happening, not after the fact, but before any operation takes place. He deserves to know what kind of danger his family has been in." Wilson considered this, then nodded. "We can brief your son tonight, with appropriate cautions about not discussing the case with anyone else. The operation at the insurance office would take place tomorrow morning." "Then we have a deal," I said, extending my hand. As we prepared to leave the FBI office, Brittany pulled me aside. "Melanie, I know you have no reason to trust me or believe anything I say, but thank you for taking this seriously. For listening." I studied her face, still struggling to reconcile the manipulative woman who had betrayed my son with the frightened, remorseful person before me now. "I'm not doing this for you," I said quietly. "I'm doing it for Hunter and the children, and for any other families these people might target." "I know," she nodded. "But still, thank you." As we walked toward the parking garage, escorted by an FBI agent for security, Brittany suddenly grabbed my arm. "Melanie, there's something else. Something I haven't told the FBI yet, because I wanted to tell you first." I stopped, turning to face her. "What now?" "Kevin isn't just targeting you and Hunter. He's got a list, other families he was planning to target after yours. I found it on his laptop when he was in the shower one day, right before we left for the Maldives. Names, addresses, financial details, all organized by net worth and vulnerability." "Did you tell Agent Wilson about this list?" "Not yet. I thought you should know first, that it wasn't just personal. What he was doing, it was systematic, cold, like you and Hunter were just entries on a spreadsheet to him." The agent escorting us cleared his throat. "Ms. Pope, if you have additional evidence relevant to this investigation, you need to disclose it immediately. Brittany nodded. I will. I just needed Melanie to understand. As we reached my car, Brittany hesitated. Do you want me to come with you to help explain everything to Hunter? I shook my head. No. Agent Wilson and his team will handle the official briefing, and Hunter needs to hear certain things from me, not from you. Of course, she said, her eyes downcast. I understand. Brittany, I added as I opened my car door. What you've done coming forward, providing evidence it doesn't erase the affair or the pain you've caused, but it is the right thing. Remember that. She nodded, a tear slipping down her cheek. I know it doesn't fix anything. I just hope someday Lily and Max will know I tried to protect them, even if I failed at everything else. As I drove home, my mind raced with everything I'd learned. How would Hunter react? How could we protect the children not just from physical danger, but from the emotional trauma of knowing their mother had been involved, however unwittingly, in a plot against their family? By the time I pulled into Hunter's driveway, I had no answers, only the certainty that our family's ordeal was far from over. Mom, where have you been? Samantha demanded the moment I walked through the door. It's almost 6 o'clock. I know, I'm sorry, I said, setting down my purse. Where's Hunter? In the living room with the kids. They're playing some board game. She lowered her voice. He knows something's up. I've been deflecting all day. But he's not buying the everything's fine routine anymore. I nodded, taking a deep breath to steady myself. There are FBI agents coming here tonight, around 8 o'clock, after the children are in bed. Samantha's eyes widened. FBI, Mom. What the hell is going on? It's complicated and disturbing, but everyone is safe right now. I promise I'll explain everything once Hunter knows. I found my son and grandchildren engaged in what appeared to be an intense game of Monopoly. Hunter looked up as I entered, his expression a mixture of relief and concern. There's Grandma, Max exclaimed. Grandma, I'm winning. I have all the railroads. I bent to kiss the top of his head. That's wonderful, sweetheart. You're quite the businessman. Lily, ever perceptive, studied my face. Are you okay, Grandma? You look tired. Just a busy day, darling. How was school? As the children chattered about their day, Hunter caught my eye, his questioning gaze making it clear we would be talking later. I gave him a small nod of acknowledgement. After dinner, baths, and bedtime stories, we finally had the children settled for the night. Samantha had agreed to stay, sensing that whatever was coming, we might need her support. All right, Mom, Hunter said as we gathered in the kitchen. Enough mysteries. Where were you today? And why are FBI agents coming to my house? Before I could answer, the doorbell rang. Agent Wilson and a female colleague stood on the porch, both in business attire rather than the FBI jackets one sees in movies. Mr. Pope, Wilson extended his hand. I'm Special Agent Thomas Wilson, and this is Special Agent Jennifer Walsh. We need to speak with you about a matter of some urgency. Hunter shook their hands, his lawyer's composure hiding what I knew must be growing alarm. Please, come in. Once we were all seated in the living room, Agent Wilson began the difficult task of explaining the situation. He was professional, but direct, outlining Kevin Bishop's operation, Brittany's unwitting role in it, and the evidence suggesting that both Hunter and I had been targeted for murder. Hunter listened without interruption, his face growing paler with each revelation. When Wilson played a short excerpt from Brittany's recordings, Kevin's voice calmly discussing how to stage my accidental death, Hunter's hands clenched into fists so tight his knuckles turned white. Let me be clear about this, Hunter said when Wilson finally paused. My wife was having an affair with a man who was planning to kill my mother and me for insurance money, insurance policies I never even signed. That appears to be the case, Wilson confirmed. Though your wife maintains she had no knowledge of his true intentions until recently, and her decision to record his conversations and bring this evidence to us supports that claim. Hunter laughed bitterly. So now Brittany is a hero after abandoning me during a heart attack to vacation with this murderer. I understand your anger, Mr. Pope, Agent Walsh interjected gently. But right now, our priority has to be stopping Bishop and his network before they can harm your family or anyone else." "And how exactly do you propose to do that?" Hunter demanded. Wilson explained the plan for my visit to the insurance office the next morning, emphasizing the safety precautions that would be in place. Hunter's reaction was immediate and vehement. "Absolutely not. My mother is not putting herself at risk. There has to be another way." "It's my decision, Hunter," I said quietly. "And I've already agreed." He turned to me, disbelief written across his face. "Mom, these people have killed before. You can't seriously be considering this." "I'm not just considering it. I'm doing it." I reached for his hand. "Hunter, this isn't just about us anymore. Brittany found a list on Kevin's computer other families he was planning to target after us. If we can help stop this network now, we could be saving lives." "Send in an undercover agent," Hunter argued. "Someone trained for this kind of thing." Agent Wilson shook his head. "We need someone the insurance company knows. Someone whose request for policy information would seem natural and wouldn't raise suspicions. Your mother is the policyholder of record. It has to be her." Hunter looked from Wilson to me and back again, clearly struggling with the idea of putting his mother in harm's way after everything else that had happened. "What about the children?" he asked finally. "If these people are as dangerous as you say, what's stopping them from targeting Lily and Max?" "We've had agents monitoring your home since yesterday," Wilson assured him, "and we'll maintain that security until Bishop and his known associates are in custody. Additionally, we'd recommend keeping the children home from school tomorrow, just as a precaution." Samantha, who had been silently processing everything, spoke up. "I can stay with them. Work remotely from here tomorrow." Hunter nodded, some of the tension leaving his shoulders. "And what happens after tomorrow? After this operation at the insurance office, do we just go back to our normal lives with the knowledge that there might be other people out there who want us dead?" "We'll have a better answer to that question after tomorrow," Wilson said. "But based on the evidence Brittany has provided, we believe we can identify and arrest the key players in this network. Once they're in custody, the immediate threat to your family would be significantly reduced." We spent the next hour discussing logistics, security measures, and exactly what I would need to do at the insurance office. By the time the agents left, it was nearly midnight, and Hunter looked exhausted, the strain of the day evident in the lines around his eyes. "You should rest," I told him, concerned about the effect of all this stress on his still recovering heart. "The children will be up early, and you need your strength." "How can I possibly rest after learning that my wife's lover was planning to kill us?" Hunter ran a hand through his hair. "God, Mom, when does this nightmare end?" "One step at a time," I said softly. "First, we help the FBI catch these people. Then we focus on healing you, the children, our family." "And Brittany?" he asked, his voice tight with conflicting emotions. "What happens with her?" It was the question I'd been dreading. "That's for you to decide. Hunter, she betrayed you terribly, but she also came forward with evidence that might save our lives and others." Hunter shook his head. "I don't know if I can ever forgive her for the affair, for abandoning me when I needed her most. But this," he gestured vaguely, encompassing the whole bizarre situation. "How do I even process this?" "You don't have to decide anything tonight," Samantha interjected practically. "Let's get through tomorrow first. One crisis at a time." Hunter nodded, the emotional and physical exhaustion finally catching up with him. "You're right. I need to sleep. But Mom," he caught my hand as I stood to leave. "Please be careful tomorrow. I can't lose you too." "You won't," I promised, squeezing his fingers. "I'll be fine. Agent Wilson knows what he's doing." That night, sleeping in Hunter's guest room, I found myself staring at the ceiling, replaying the events of the past week in my mind. How had we gone from a heart attack and an affair to a murder plot and an FBI operation in just 7 days? It seemed impossible, like something from a thriller novel rather than real life. Yet here we were, and tomorrow I would walk into an insurance office and potentially help expose a criminal who had been planning my death. The thought should have terrified me, but instead, I felt strangely calm. Perhaps it was the clarity that comes with having no choice but to move forward. Or perhaps it was simply the maternal instinct to protect my family at any cost. Whatever the reason, when I finally drifted off to sleep, it was with the determined resolve that had carried me through widowhood, through raising 2 children alone, through all of life's challenges. Tomorrow would bring what it would bring, and I would face it head on. The morning dawned bright and clear, a beautiful spring day that belied the tension in Hunter's house as I prepared for my appointment at the insurance office. Samantha had arrived early, armed with games and activities to keep the children occupied and distracted from the unusual fact that they were staying home from school on a Tuesday. Hunter hovered anxiously as I dressed in my usual conservative slacks and blouse, adding a simple pendant necklace that concealed a tiny recording device provided by the FBI. "Are you sure about this?" he asked for what must have been the 10th time since waking. "It's not too late to back out." "I'm sure," I replied, checking my appearance in the mirror. "Agent Wilson and his team will be there the entire time. All I have to do is request copies of my policies and ask a few specific questions they've prepared for me. And if something goes wrong, then I say the code phrase, 'I think I left my reading glasses in the car,' and they intervene immediately." I turned to face him. "Hunter, this is going to work, and by this afternoon, Kevin Bishop will be in custody." He nodded, though the worry didn't leave his eyes. "Just come back safely. Okay, the kids need you. I need you." "I will," I promised, touched by his concern. "Now stop frowning before you give yourself more wrinkles than your old mother." That earned a small smile, exactly as I'd hoped. Agent Walsh arrived at 9:30 to drive me to the insurance office, dressed in civilian clothes that would allow her to pose as my daughter, accompanying me to the appointment. The plan was simple. I would meet with my regular agent, Richard Dawson, request copies of all my policies, and ask specific questions designed to potentially expose irregularities that might lead to Bishop's accomplice within the company. "Remember," Walsh briefed me as we drove, "if anyone other than Dawson offers to help you or claims there are special forms you need to sign, that's our red flag. We have agents positioned throughout the office and in the parking lot. You're never alone, even if it feels that way." I nodded, going over the script in my mind. And Dawson himself, could he be involved? We've vetted him thoroughly. He's been with the company for 30 years, has an impeccable record, and no financial irregularities or connections to Bishop that we can find. But we're not ruling anyone out completely. The insurance office was located in a modern office park, all glass and steel, with a spacious lobby and reception area. As I approached the front desk, Walsh a few steps behind me, I felt a curious calm settle over me. "Good morning," I smiled at the receptionist. "Melanie Pope to see Richard Dawson. I have an appointment at 10:15. "Of course, Mrs. Pope. Mr. Dawson is expecting you. Please have a seat, and I'll let him know you're here." Walsh and I sat in the waiting area, making small talk about fictional grandchildren while I discreetly surveyed the room. Agent Wilson had shown me photographs of Kevin Bishop's known associates, but I didn't recognize anyone in the busy office. After a few minutes, Richard Dawson emerged from a hallway, his familiar face breaking into a warm smile. "Melanie, wonderful to see you. And this is my daughter, Jennifer." I introduced Walsh smoothly. "She's helping me get my affairs in order now that I'm getting older." "Nonsense. You don't look a day over 50, Dawson said gallantly, leading us back to his office. "Now, what can I help you with today?" I followed the script perfectly, explaining that recent health concerns had made me realize the importance of understanding all my policies. "I'd like copies of everything life insurance, home, auto, the works, and I want to review my beneficiaries. Make sure everything is up to date." Dawson nodded, typing something into his computer. "Of course, I can print summaries of all your policies right now, and we can request complete documentation to be mailed to you." "That would be wonderful," I smiled. "I'm particularly interested in my life insurance policy. I want to make sure my son and grandchildren are properly provided for." "Let me pull that up for you." Dawson clicked through several screens, then frowned slightly. "That's odd." "What's odd?" I asked, feeling Walsh tense beside me. "There seems to be a notation on your file, a policy review conducted 3 months ago by—" He peered at the screen. "Marcus Reynolds." I don't recall assigning anyone else to your account. This was it, the moment we'd been waiting for. Marcus Reynolds, I don't believe I've ever met him. What kind of review was this? It says here it was a standard in-home review, with updated beneficiary information. Dawson's frown deepened. But any changes to beneficiaries would require your signature on official forms, and I don't see those in your file. Could you check if there are any pending changes or forms that haven't been processed yet? Walsh suggested casually. My mother is very concerned about making sure her affairs are in order. Dawson nodded, clicking through more screens. I'm not seeing any pending changes, but let me check with our processing department. Sometimes there's a backlog. He picked up his phone and dialed an extension. Janice, it's Richard Dawson. I'm with a client, Melanie Pope, and I'm seeing a notation about a policy review by Marcus Reynolds, but no documentation. Can you check if there's anything pending or in process for her account? As he listened to the response, his expression grew increasingly concerned. I see. No, that's all for now. Thank you. He hung up and turned to us with a troubled look. Janice says there's no Marcus Reynolds employed in our office or any of our regional branches, and there's no record of any paperwork being submitted for changes to your policy. That's very strange, I said, injecting just the right note of worry into my voice. Someone came to my house claiming to be from this company. He had identification, business cards, everything looked official. Dawson was already typing rapidly. I'm flagging your account for potential fraud. This is extremely concerning. Mrs. Pope. Identity theft targeting insurance policies has become increasingly common, but for someone to actually impersonate a company representative. As Dawson continued explaining the steps they would take to secure my account, the office door opened, and a woman in a tailored suit stepped in. Richard, sorry to interrupt, but Mr. Clarkson needs these signatures right away. She placed a folder on his desk, then turned to me with a professional smile. Mrs. Pope, I'm Lisa Montgomery, Customer Relations Manager. I understand there may be some confusion about your policy. Walsh and I exchanged a subtle glance. This wasn't part of the script. Yes, apparently someone claiming to be from this company conducted a review that Mr. Dawson has no record of, I explained. That's concerning indeed. If you don't mind, I'd like to pull your complete file from our secure system. Richard only has access to the summary information. She gestured to the door. Would you mind joining me in our executive conference room? We take potential fraud very seriously. It was the scenario we'd been briefed on someone other than Dawson offering special assistance. I hesitated just long enough to appear natural, then nodded. Of course. Jennifer, will you come with me? Actually, Lisa interjected smoothly, our secure system is in a restricted area. Company policy only allows policyholders beyond that point. Your daughter is welcome to wait here with Richard. Walsh began to protest, but I cut her off with a gentle touch on her arm. It's fine, dear. This shouldn't take long. Then I added casually, Oh, I think I left my reading glasses in the car. Would you mind getting them for me while I speak with Ms. Montgomery? The code phrase. Walsh nodded, understanding immediately. Of course. Mom, I'll be right back. As I followed Lisa Montgomery down a corridor toward the back of the building, I maintained the appearance of a concerned but cooperative client, all while acutely aware that this woman might be connected to the people who wanted me dead. Here we are, she said, opening a door to a small conference room with no windows. Please, have a seat. I'll pull up your complete file. I sat, watching as she closed the door behind us and moved to a computer terminal in the corner. The room suddenly felt very small and very isolated. So, Mrs. Pope, she said without looking up from the computer. You've been with our company for quite some time, haven't you? 27 years, I confirmed. Since shortly after my husband and I bought our first house, and now you're concerned about unauthorized changes to your policy. Yes, especially since I never authorized anyone to conduct an in-home review. She turned from the computer, her professional smile never wavering. The thing is, Mrs. Pope, there's no record of any review in our system. No Marcus Reynolds, no pending changes, nothing to worry about at all. Then why was there a notation in my file that Mr. Dawson saw? Her smile tightened almost imperceptibly. Computer glitches happen. I'm sure it was just a simple error. Perhaps, I said carefully. But I'd still like copies of all my policies. just to be sure everything is as it should be. Of course. She turned back to the computer, typing rapidly. While I prepare those, may I ask if you've discussed these concerns with anyone else, family members, other financial advisors? And there it was, the fishing expedition to determine how much I knew and who else might know it. Just my son, I replied, watching her reaction closely. He's been helping me organize my financial affairs since his father passed away. I see. Her typing paused momentarily. And has your son suggested any changes to your policies recently? Perhaps additional coverage or different beneficiaries? Before I could answer, the door opened and Agent Wilson stepped in, flanked by 2 other agents in FBI jackets. Lisa Montgomery, he said formally. FBI, we need to ask you some questions about your association with Kevin Bishop and fraudulent insurance policies being created through this office. The transformation was instantaneous. Montgomery's professional demeanor vanished, replaced by cold calculation as her eyes darted around the room, presumably looking for an escape route. I don't know what you're talking about, she said, her voice suddenly harsh. This is a private meeting with a client. A client whose life insurance policy was fraudulently modified to benefit Kevin Bishop in the event of her death, Wilson countered. We have the paper trail, Ms. Montgomery, and now we have your attempt to isolate Mrs. Pope in a restricted area against company policy. As the agents moved to detain Montgomery, I sat perfectly still, watching the scene unfold with a strange sense of detachment. This woman had been part of a plot to kill me, to kill my son. All for money. Yet she looked so ordinary, just another professional in a suit. Someone you'd pass in a grocery store without a second glance. Mrs. Pope, Wilson said gently, breaking into my thoughts. Agent Walsh is waiting for you in the lobby. This operation is concluded. As I was escorted from the building, I saw other agents leading a handcuffed Montgomery to a waiting vehicle. In the lobby, Walsh met me with obvious relief. Are you all right? She asked, checking me over as if expecting to find injuries. I'm fine, I assured her. Just ready to go home to my family. In the car, Walsh shared the news that Kevin Bishop had been arrested simultaneously at his gym, taken into custody without incident. He seemed genuinely shocked, she said. Apparently, he didn't expect Brittany to turn on him. And the others, Montgomery's accomplices. Operations are ongoing at several locations. We expect to have the primary network members in custody by the end of the day. I leaned back in the seat, suddenly exhausted as the adrenaline drained away. It's really over. Then, Walsh smiled, the immediate danger to your family is over. Yes, there will be interviews, formal statements, eventually testimony when these cases go to trial, but the threat has been neutralized. As we pulled into Hunter's driveway, I saw him standing at the window, Lily and Max peering out beside him. The moment the car stopped, the front door flew open, and all 3 rushed out to meet me. Grandma, Lily cried, flinging herself into my arms. Daddy said you were helping the police catch bad guys. I hugged her tightly, then reached for Max, who was bouncing with excitement. Is it true? Are you a superhero now? I laughed, the sound surprising even me after the tension of the morning. Not quite, sweetheart. But I did help some very brave FBI agents today. Hunter embraced me next, holding on perhaps a bit longer than usual. You're okay, he whispered. I'm perfectly fine, I assured him. And Kevin Bishop is in custody, along with at least one of his accomplices. The relief on his face was worth every moment of fear I'd experienced. Thank God. As we walked back into the house, Samantha rushing forward to join the family reunion, I felt a profound sense of gratitude, not just for the danger averted, but for the simple fact that we were all here, together, safe. The road ahead would still be challenging divorce proceedings, potential criminal trials, helping the children understand as much as they needed to about their mother's role in all of this. But we would face those challenges as a family, stronger for having weathered this storm together. And somewhere in the back of my mind, I found myself wondering about Brittany, about redemption and second chances, about whether some betrayals can be, if not forgiven, at least understood in the context of human frailty and manipulation. These were questions for another day. For now, I was content to be surrounded by the people I loved most in the world, all of us alive and safe, despite the best efforts of those who had plotted against us. As Agent Walsh prepared to leave, she paused at the door. "Mrs. Pope, I've been doing this job for 15 years, and I've rarely seen a civilian handle themselves with such composure under pressure. You were remarkable today," I smiled, thinking of all the challenges life had already thrown my way. When you're a mother, Agent Walsh, you discover strengths you never knew you had, especially when your family is threatened. "Well, your family is lucky to have you," she said sincerely. "We'll be in touch about next steps, but for now, try to rest and recover from all of this." Rest sounded wonderful, but I knew there was still one more difficult conversation ahead. Hunter needed to decide what role, if any, Brittany would have in their lives moving forward. It was a decision only he could make, but one that would affect us all, especially the children. As I watched Lily and Max chattering excitedly about their grandmother's secret mission, I silently vowed to support whatever choice Hunter made, so long as it protected these precious children and gave them the stability and love they deserved. Some battles choose you. This one had definitely chosen our family. But standing together in Hunter's living room, surrounded by love and relief, I knew we had emerged not just survivors, but victors. The next 3 weeks unfolded in a blur of FBI interviews, legal consultations, and careful conversations with the children about the changes in their family. Hunter was steadily regaining his strength, both physically and emotionally. The children, resilient as only the young can be, had adapted to their new routine with remarkable ease. Brittany remained a complicated figure in our family narrative. Her cooperation with the FBI had undoubtedly saved lives, not just ours, but potentially those of other families on Kevin Bishop's target list. Yet the fact remained that she had betrayed Hunter, abandoned him during a medical crisis, and nearly entangled our family with a dangerous criminal. On a warm Saturday afternoon, I was in Hunter's garden, teaching Lily how to deadhead the roses, when he joined us, a thoughtful expression on his face. "Lily, sweetheart, would you mind checking on Max? I think he was looking for his dinosaur book." Lily glanced between us, clearly sensing an adult conversation was about to take place, but nodded. "Okay, Daddy, but Grandma was just showing me how to make the roses grow better." "We'll continue our lesson later," I promised, watching as she skipped into the house. Hunter settled onto the garden bench beside me, wincing slightly as he adjusted position. His recovery was progressing well, but certain movements still caused discomfort. "Rebecca called," he said without preamble. "The divorce papers are ready. She wanted to know if I'm still proceeding given everything." I set down my garden shears. "And what did you tell her?" "That I needed time to think." He ran a hand through his hair, a gesture so reminiscent of his father. "Mom, I don't know what to do about Brittany. Part of me is still so angry I can barely think straight. But then I remember she could have let Bishop's plan proceed. She could have stayed silent. Instead, she risked everything to protect us." "That's true," I acknowledged. "Though it doesn't erase the affair or the abandonment." "No, it doesn't." Hunter gazed out at the garden, the roses Brittany had once tended now under my care. "The FBI says her testimony will be crucial in the case against Bishop and his network. Apparently, they've linked him to 2 confirmed murders in Florida elderly women whose deaths were originally ruled accidental." I shuddered, thinking how close we'd come to being added to that list. "Has Brittany asked to see the children?" "Yes, she calls every day. I've been letting them talk to her on the phone, but I haven't agreed to in-person visits yet." He turned to me, his expression troubled. "Am I being cruel? Mom using the children to punish her?" "I don't think you're being cruel," I said carefully. "I think you're being cautious. The children have been through enough upheaval. It's reasonable to want stability for them right now." Hunter nodded, seeming relieved by my answer. "That's what I keep telling myself. But then Max asked last night when Mommy was coming home, and I didn't know what to say." The pain in his voice was palpable. Whatever Brittany had done, she was still the mother of his children, still the woman he had once loved enough to marry, to build a family with. "What does your heart tell you, Hunter?" He laughed humorlessly, My heart isn't exactly reliable these days. Literal and metaphorical issues. Fair enough. Then what does your mind tell you, the logical lawyer part that can separate emotion from fact? He considered this. That people make terrible mistakes, that even good people can be manipulated, can make choices they later regret. That Brittany did something unforgivable, then something possibly redemptive. He sighed. And that the children love their mother, despite everything. Those all sound like valid observations, I said. What's holding you back from making a decision? Fear, I think. Fear that if I let her back into our lives, even in a limited way, she'll hurt us again. Fear that if I don't, I'm depriving Lily and Max of their mother out of my own anger. I reached for his hand. There's no perfect answer here. Hunter, no decision that doesn't carry some risk or pain. But remember, this doesn't have to be all or nothing. There's a middle ground between total forgiveness and complete exclusion. Like what? Supervised visits, family therapy, a slow, careful reintroduction with professional guidance. Boundaries that protect everyone while allowing for the possibility of healing. Hunter squeezed my hand. When did you get so wise, Mom? Around the time I turned 65 and stopped caring what anyone thought of my decisions, I replied with a smile. Aging has its privileges. Our conversation was interrupted by the ringing of Hunter's phone. He checked the screen, his expression shifting to surprise. It's Agent Wilson. I listened as Hunter spoke with the FBI agent, watching his face move from confusion to shock to something like grim satisfaction. When he hung up, he sat in silence for a moment. What is it? I prompted. They found Bishop's complete list, all the families he was targeting, 23 of them, across 8 states, elderly individuals with substantial assets and complex family situations. He shook his head in disbelief. Wilson says it's one of the most organized and potentially deadly fraud schemes they've ever uncovered. My God, I whispered. 23 families. And that's not all. Lisa Montgomery, the woman from the insurance office, she's talking, offering information in exchange for leniency. Apparently, this network has been operating for over 5 years. They may have been responsible for as many as 7 deaths previously ruled as accidents or natural causes. The magnitude of what Brittany had helped uncover was staggering. Not just a single criminal, but an entire operation that had been targeting vulnerable families for years. There's more, Hunter continued. Wilson says Brittany has been cooperative beyond expectation. She's provided access to email accounts, financial records, everything she has that might help build the case. She even recorded a conversation with one of Bishop's associates who contacted her after his arrest, someone they hadn't identified yet. She's trying to make amends, I observed. In a way that might actually matter, Hunter agreed. Wilson said something else, something that stuck with me. He said, some people make terrible choices and never look back. Others make terrible choices and then spend the rest of their lives trying to atone for them. The question is which category your wife falls into. I nodded, understanding the implied question. And what do you think, which category does Brittany fall into? Hunter was quiet for a long moment. I think she's trying to atone. I don't know if she can ever fully make up for what she did, but she's trying. That has to count for something. It does, I agreed. The question is how much, and where you go from here. Later that evening, after the children were asleep, Hunter called Brittany. I gave him privacy for the conversation, busying myself in the kitchen with preparations for Sunday breakfast. But when he emerged from his office an hour later, his expression told me it had been a significant discussion. I've invited her to meet us at Dr. Levine's office next week, he said, referring to the family therapist Rebecca had recommended. With the children, a supervised reunion, with professional support. That sounds like a wise first step, I said, setting aside the mixing bowl I'd been using. How do you feel about it? Terrified, angry, sad? He gave a small, rueful smile, but also maybe a tiny bit hopeful. Not for us, that's over. But hopeful that we might find a way forward that doesn't destroy the children's relationship with their mother or leave me bitter for the rest of my life. I hugged him then. This son who had grown into such a thoughtful, compassionate man despite the pain he'd endured. "I'm proud of you, Hunter. This isn't an easy path you're choosing." "I'm not sure there are any easy paths left," he said, returning the embrace. "Just some that might hurt less in the long run." The following week brought the carefully orchestrated meeting at Dr. Levine's office. I wasn't present for the session itself. This was about Hunter, Brittany, and the children, but I waited in the reception area, ready to support in whatever way was needed. When they emerged 2 hours later, the emotional exhaustion was evident on both adults' faces. But Lily and Max were holding their mother's hands, chattering about school and friends as if trying to catch her up on everything she'd missed. Brittany's eyes were red-rimmed, but there was something like cautious relief in her expression as she met my gaze across the room. Grandma Max called, breaking away to run toward me. "Dr. Levine has toys in her office, and Mommy says she might come to my baseball game next week." "That sounds wonderful, sweetheart," I said, lifting him into a hug while watching Hunter and Brittany exchange a few quiet words. As Brittany prepared to leave, this first reunion was deliberately brief. She approached me hesitantly. "Melanie," she began, her voice uncertain, "I want to thank you for everything, for protecting Hunter and the children, for listening to me when you had every reason not to." I studied her face, seeing genuine remorse in her eyes. "I didn't do it for you, Brittany. I did it for my family. I know." She nodded. "But still, thank you." She paused, then added softly, "I know I can never make up for what I did, but I'm going to spend the rest of my life trying to be worthy of those children. And I hope someday you might be able to see me as something other than the woman who betrayed your son." It was an olive branch, tentatively extended, not asking for forgiveness, but for the possibility of a future where forgiveness might eventually exist. "Time will tell," I said, not unkindly. "For now, focus on being the mother Lily and Max deserve." She nodded, accepting this limited response as the most she could hope for now. After saying goodbye to the children with promises to call them that evening, she left, her shoulders straighter than I'd seen them since this ordeal began. Hunter watched her go, his expression unreadable. "Dr. Levine thinks we should continue weekly sessions," he said as we herded the children toward the car. "Both family sessions and individual ones for Brittany and me." "That sounds wise," I agreed. How did the children react to seeing her? Confused at first, then happy, then confused again when they realized she wasn't coming home with us. He sighed. "Dr. Levine says that's normal, that they'll need time and consistency to adjust to the new reality." Over the following months, a new pattern emerged in our lives. Hunter continued to heal, both physically and emotionally. The children adapted to their new schedule, living with Hunter and seeing Brittany for supervised visits that gradually increased in duration and frequency as she proved herself reliable and committed to their well-being. I remained a constant presence, supporting Hunter's recovery and helping with the children, but also consciously stepping back when appropriate to allow their father to fully resume his parenting role. My own life, which had narrowed to focus entirely on the family crisis, began to expand again. I rejoined my book club, resumed volunteering at the library, and even, to Hunter's amusement, started those tennis lessons I'd been considering. The legal proceedings against Kevin Bishop and his network continued, with both Hunter and I providing formal statements and Brittany serving as a key witness. The case attracted national attention, leading to renewed investigations into suspicious deaths in multiple states and warnings to potential victims who had been on Bishop's target list. One evening in late summer, as I sat on Hunter's patio watching the children play in the twilight, my phone chimed with a text message from an unknown number. "Melanie, it's Brittany. I wanted you to know that Kevin Bishop pleaded guilty today as part of a deal with federal prosecutors. He'll be sentenced to a minimum of 30 years. His network has been dismantled. The lead prosecutor said your testimony was crucial and that your courage in the insurance office operation was extraordinary. I know we have a long way to go, but I wanted you to know that your strength in freezing those accounts and fighting back didn't just save your family. It saved strangers you'll never meet. Thank you for being braver than I was. I hope someday Lily and Max will understand that their grandmother is a hero." I read the message twice, emotions welling up unexpectedly. Not just for the news about Bishop, though that was certainly welcome, but for the acknowledgement of a journey that had begun with betrayal and nearly ended in tragedy, yet somehow had transformed into something like redemption. Hunter joined me on the patio, handing me a glass of iced tea. "Good news?" he asked, noticing my expression. I showed him the message, watching as he read it carefully. "She's right, he said quietly. "You are a hero, Mom." I thought about the question seriously. I'm a mother and grandmother who refuse to let anyone hurt her family. If that makes me a hero, then every woman who's ever stood up to a bully is a hero. Then the world is full of heroes, Hunter smiled. I hope so, I said, watching Lily and Max chase fireflies in the gathering dusk. I really hope so. As darkness fell and the children's laughter filled the summer air, I felt a profound sense of peace settle over me. Our family had been tested in ways I could never have imagined. We had faced betrayal, danger, and nearly lost everything. Yet here we were, not just surviving, but finding our way toward healing. The road ahead would still have its challenges. There would be difficult days, painful memories, moments of doubt. But looking at Hunter healthy, resilient, and bravely forging a new path for his family, I knew we would face those challenges together, with the same strength and love that had carried us through this storm. Some battles choose you. This one had chosen our family, and though the cost had been high, we had emerged not just intact, but somehow stronger, wiser, and more deeply connected than before. In the end, perhaps that was the greatest victory of all.